Lydia Evans gritted her teeth. Her face was smeared with dirt. What the hell is this? How much longer do I have to keep doing this? Lydia Evans swung her giant sickle, and a streak of purple light tore through the darkness. She had once been a noble lady of the Marquis family. Now she was nothing more than a prisoner in a labor camp. A woman who went mad over a man and destroyed her own fate. That's right, I was once obsessed with him. Ridiculously enough, the man I had loved with all my heart until death was Richard. He was the one who ruined my life. Lydia wiped the sweat from her face with her sleeve. Hatred flared in her eyes. Just because he comforted me when I was crying, I fell hopelessly in love with him. How unbelievably foolish. Richard was the third prince, born to a commoner mother, constantly suppressed by the crown prince. Lydia recalled Richard's smiling face, and the sight of it made her sick. He was absolutely the worst possible marriage partner. But foolish me, relying on my family's power, proposed to him. Lydia went down on one knee and offered Richard a bouquet of blue hydrangeas. Please marry me. Lydia gazed at him with eyes full of love. I had to make this man mine. Richard became engaged to me and used that to survive the imperial power struggle. When the crown prince inherited the throne and ruled tyrannically, Richard seized the chance to launch a rebellion. In the end, he ascended the throne himself. Then Richard fell in love with my cousin, Giselle, and abandoned me. Lydia stared at them in shock as they embraced. If they had simply fallen in love, I would have had nothing to say. But that pair of lunatics even framed my family for treason. The Evans family was executed. Lydia collapsed into a pool of blood. This was the price my family paid. Lydia jolted awake from the nightmare. Cold sweat soaked her hair. The past clung to her like a shadow. I had to kill Giselle, blinded by love. I thought taking Giselle away was the greatest revenge against Richard. Lydia poured a small bottle of poison into a cup. The purple liquid instantly bubbled, but the poisoning failed, and the result was exactly what you see now. Lydia collapsed to the ground. I am exhausted. She raised a hand to wipe the sweat from her forehead. I should have killed that bastard from the beginning. If this keeps up, my body will give out. Leaning against the wall, Lydia panted. Better save my strength. Lydia slumped to the ground. Blood slid from the corner of her mouth. Damn it. Lydia sprawled over a heap of stones. This cursed fate. Lydia lay on the cold ground. After coming to the labor camp and enduring 5 years, I finally caught the plague. She closed her eyes, yet a faint smile of relief appeared on her lips. Lydia's body turned into motes of light and scattered into the air. The film reel of her life began to rewind. If I could do it over again, I would never fall in love with anyone. I would live for myself. Scene after scene from the past flashed by. Is this the panorama of my life? Photos from her childhood flickered past. Stop. Happy memories with Richard surfaced. Please, don't show me anymore. Lydia squeezed her eyes shut, her face twisting in pain. If I could go back to that moment, I would absolutely slap that idiot as hard as I could. A flash of light burst forth. The world shattered and reformed. Lydia Evans. A voice rang out. Lydia suddenly opened her eyes. She was in a luxurious room, no longer a worn-out prisoner in the labor camp. Lydia choked in surprise. What's going on? Richard glared at her, surrounded by guards. We receive a report that you hid poison. You tried to poison Giselle, didn't you? Lydia looked at him in confusion. Poison? What? She lowered her head and looked at her hand. In her palm lay a bottle of purple liquid. This really is poison. Lydia's pupils contracted. Did I return to the past? Back to the day I was arrested for attempted poisoning? Lydia pressed a hand to her forehead, her body swaying. But why did I come back after the poisoning failed? It should have been before it happened. Lydia clutched her head and screamed, collapsing to her knees. She lifted a hand to wipe the corner of her eye. From now on, I'll live for myself. Richard glared at her. Are you still not going to answer? Guards, search her immediately. A hand in a lace glove stretched out. Wait. Giselle stepped in front of the guards. You cannot have men search a lady's body. I'll inspect her myself. Richard looked at Giselle. Giselle. Richard moved Giselle behind him protectively. I know how you feel, but it's too dangerous. Stay behind me. Richard soothed Giselle gently, his eyes full of indulgence. Watching the scene, Lydia felt sick to her stomach. Your Majesty. Lydia looked at them. I did not come back just to watch this farce all over again. The timing is terrible, but since I've been given a chance to correct the past. Lydia clenched her fists, a trace of resolve flashing through her eyes. Suddenly, Lydia raised her hand and slapped herself hard across the face. Lydia covered her cheek, her fingertips trembling slightly. Now I've finally come to my senses. Richard and Giselle stared at her in shock. Lydia, what on earth? Lydia raised a hand, one finger brushing across her swollen cheek. She smiled. From this moment on, I will never again ruin my life for a man. Lydia's gaze was sharp, filled with the resolve of someone reborn after death. From now on, my life will no longer be controlled by men. Richard roared, what do you think you're doing? Lydia turned her face aside. If they search me, sooner or later they'll find the poison. In that case, I'd rather. Lydia turned and met Richard's eyes. You seem to have misunderstood something. This poison was prepared for myself. Suddenly, she burst into loud sobs, covering her mouth with one hand. Tears spilled out, and the surrounding guests all turned to look. Murmurs rose on every side. Lydia lowered her eyes. Self-harm is not a crime. Since everyone says I'm obsessed with men, then I'll make the rumor true. I'll say I meant to die for love because my fiancée was stolen from me. If I die, Richard will be in trouble. He can't afford to let his former fiancée die. After all, his status was built on marrying the Marquis's daughter. How would he face the Evans family? The Marquis's honor would collapse as well. To avoid being cursed for years to come, he'll definitely stop me. So as long as I pretend to drink it. Lydia pulled the stopper from the bottle and raised the poison to her lips. Richard shouted, stop her. Several attendants rushed forward and grabbed Lydia's arms. She let out a cry as the bottle tilted. Purple liquid splashed out and sprayed across Lydia's face. Damn it, I think I swallowed a little. The door was suddenly thrown open. Aslan entered with his guards. He looked around quickly. Your Majesty, you didn't answer me, so I came in. Aslan Adis stood in the crowd, his gaze cutting through the commotion. The Marquis's daughter. Could it be? A trace of blood slipped from Lydia's lips. Her body went limp. Lydia fell backward. She lost consciousness and softly called, Aslan. In one swift step, Aslan caught Lydia's collapsing body securely. Aslan's pupil shrank. Bayan? How could she know that surname? Aslan held Lydia in his arms. Two knights rushed over. Commander, one of them exclaimed, did that young lady just call the commander's name? The other leaned closer. Don't tell me you two are secretly involved? Aslan frowned deeply. Thankfully, no one heard Bayern, that hidden name. He immediately ordered, stop talking nonsense. If you have time for that, go get a doctor. Aslan lowered his eyes and stared at the unconscious Lydia in his arms. A trace of blood remained on her lips, and she lay there quietly with her eyes shut. How does this woman know that name? Two maids whispered to each other in the corridor. Have you heard? When the Marquis's daughter tried to kill herself, she looked at Sir Aslan with such affection. The other maid lowered her voice. That's not all. I heard Sir Aslan even carried her himself after she collapsed. There are even rumors that Miss Evans and Sir Aslan are secret lovers. People began to speculate that perhaps Sir Aslan had shown no interest in women all this time because the Marquis's daughter had long occupied his heart. Aslan Bayern, commander of the Black Wolf Knights, the Empire's strongest knight and the greatest contributor to Richard's successful rebellion. Rumors spread like wildfire. Who would have imagined that Aslan held affection for the Emperor's former fiancée? In Lydia's room at the Evans Marquis estate, Aslan stood by the bed. He looked at the sleeping Lydia. Ever since I carried her all the way back, the rumors must be running wild. I wanted to avoid notice, but finding out why she said Bayern and eliminating any potential threat is more important. Lydia's brows twitched faintly. Even in her dreams, she seemed unable to rest. Aslan's gaze turned sharp. Bayern, a ducal family condemned for treason and executed to the last. And I'm the only survivor of that family. My true surname is a secret that can never come to light. Lydia gave a faint murmur in her sleep. So cold. Aslan looked at her. Why is no one in this room taking care of the patient? He turned and walked to the fireplace, crouching down as the firewood crackled. Aslan rekindled the fire. He sighed. I came here to keep watch on her, and now I've become the one looking after her. What exactly am I doing? The flames in the fireplace blazed up again, lighting the room. Lydia's eyelashes fluttered slightly as she slowly opened her eyes. Her fingers twitched. Her throat was dry. Someone. Water. A voice sounded. You're awake. Lydia slowly opened her eyes and saw Aslan's face. She suddenly sat up. Aslan steadied her by the shoulders. Your body is still very weak. Get up slowly. Why is he in my room? Lydia lowered her head. Thank you. Aslan handed her a glass of water. It's a miracle you woke up after drinking poison. Miss, you're very lucky. Lydia took the glass and drank in small sips. I thought I was going to die right after being reborn. Good. Since I've come back from the dead, this time I'm going to live properly. Lydia clenched her fist. Rule number 1 my new life. Never go crazy over a man again. I need allies. Plan 1. Save the people in the labor camp. Plan 2. Take revenge on Richard and Giselle. Lydia pressed her index finger to her lower lip. To accomplish all that, I need Sir Aslan. Meeting him this soon is really lucky. Lydia smiled. Sir, why are you here? The people who helped him are in the labor camp. As long as I persuade him properly, he'll definitely help. If he refuses, I'll negotiate using the secret I know. Aslan remained expressionless. You don't remember what happened yesterday? Lydia looked blank. Yesterday? Aslan said, Yesterday, miss, you called me Byron. Lydia's smile froze. What? I said that? Are you sure you didn't hear wrong? Aslan's tone was flat. Impossible. I heard it clearly. I stayed here all night because I wanted an explanation. Aslan's gaze sharpened. Why did you call me Aslan Byron? Lydia's face turned deathly pale. Should I try to cover it up with a lie? No, that would only lose his trust. Lydia looked up and forced herself to stay calm. Sir, if I tell you the truth, will you believe me? Aslan did not waver. I'll decide after I hear it. Please speak. Lydia took a deep breath. All right. She set the cup on the table with a crisp sound and lifted her eyes to meet Aslan's directly. Sir Byron, please don't be too shocked. Lydia's gaze was steady. The truth is, I died once. Then I returned to the past. Aslan froze. What did you say? Lydia repeated herself. I said I came back from the dead. Aslan pressed a hand to his forehead. Miss, it seems you haven't fully recovered yet. I'd better visit again in a few days. Lydia looked anxious. Wait, I'm not rambling. Lydia called out, I know where Byron and Nero are. Aslan spun around at once. His movement froze. He turned back slowly. What did you just say? Lydia continued. Your writing teacher and your nursemaid. Lydia's eyes were firm. In my previous life, I was imprisoned with them in the Eastern labor camp. She sat on the bed while Aslan stood nearby. I heard they were arrested for helping you and your mother escape. Lydia's gaze was unwavering. Will you listen to my story now? I don't care if you think I'm insane. I just need to convince you to lend me your strength, because that's the only way to save those people. Byron, Nera, and Maria. They were my benefactors. They helped me survive 5 years in the labor camp. The dim light of memory faded, leaving only darkness. In my previous life, I was betrayed by my fiancé and abandoned by my family. The people who reached out a hand to me were the ones in the labor camp. How absurd. Lydia collapsed into the mud, her cross-shaped toe lying beside her. This is too hard. Curling up, she pounded the ground. Am I going to rot in this place forever? Meanwhile, that cheating bastard became emperor and is out there living in comfort. I'd rather die. A woman walked in. Miss, you're talking nonsense again. Even so, this kind of life is still better than the next world. Nera stuffed bread into Lydia's mouth. Stop crying. Eat. Maria patted her back. That's right. Forget that kind of man already. Pull yourself together. There's no point grieving over someone who's already gone. With tears in her eyes, Lydia chewed the rough bread, yet it gave her a reason to keep living. They shared their food with me. They helped me when I was utterly useless. They smiled at me. In the labor camp, they were the people who kept me alive in my previous life. This time, I'm going to save them no matter what. In the 5th year, we decided to escape. But that winter, everyone died in a plague. Lydia lowered her head as she spoke. If you don't believe me, you can send someone east to confirm it. She raised her eyes and looked straight at Aslan. There's a hidden prison camp there. That should be enough to make him believe. Aslan lightly clapped his hands. I understand completely. Miss, breaking off your engagement must have been a great shock. He didn't believe her at all. With concern on his face, Aslan said, you need rest. The doctor will be here soon. Lydia reached out. Wait, please listen a little longer. Aslan turned away. I was rude to disturb a patient. I'll visit again after you recover. A voice called out, Sir, wait. Aslan paused. A servant entered. Sir Aslan, the young master requests your presence at dinner. Aslan frowned deeply. Sorry, I have urgent business. That will be all for today. He strode away. No matter how you think about it. She sounded insane. Aslan quickened his pace. But she knew so much about Nera and Byron. He stopped walking and irritably ran a hand through his hair. I can't believe I'm being shaken by such nonsense. Still, I should investigate. Miss should be kept under strict watch in the Marquis estate in case her condition worsens. Yet she seems to have no one caring for her. I see. That's why she looks so terrible. How pitiful. Devon stood in the hall while a servant reported to him. So Sir Aslan declined dinner and left immediately? Yes, Devon looked thoughtful. I assumed he had spent the entire day in Lydia's room. Seems I was wrong. Devon turned to the butler. What do you think? The butler cleared his throat. If I may speak frankly, Sir Aslan definitely has feelings for the young lady. The butler continued. You could tell from the way he looked at her while holding her. That was clearly the look of a man worried about the woman he loves. Devon fell into thought, but nothing like that has ever happened between him and Lydia before. The butler straightened his back. My eyes did not deceive me. Devon clasped his hands together. HM, I had planned to let her fend for herself, since she brought disgrace upon the family. Who would have thought my foolish little sister could attract Aslan? A calculating glint flashed in Devon's eyes, and a cold smile curled his lips. Butler, keep Lydia under house arrest and take good care of her. My sister may have terrible taste in men, but in this case it worked out. A week passed after the suicide uproar. Lydia sat at a desk, a quill moving over parchment. While recovering, she drafted countermeasures for every possibility. Flowcharts covered the parchment. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, all based on whether Aslan would help her. The problem is, Sir Aslan still hasn't contacted me. Lydia tapped the quill lightly. Of course, I considered the possibility that he would refuse. But if I want to save them quickly, I need an ally. She suddenly stood up. No, I need to make Devon lift my confinement. Instead of passively waiting, I should go to him directly. Lydia pushed the door open. Devon. Devon turned around. Lydia. Devon wore a smile. You came at the right time. His Majesty has arranged a marriage for you. Lydia's eyes widened slightly. Devon's voice sounded light. I hear the match is Count Mont. Lydia's fingers crumpled the paper in her hand. So now you want me to marry some old grandfather with children? Devon smiled. This marriage was arranged by your former fiancé, so just accept it. Fury flashed in Lydia's eyes. How can you say something like that? Devon's smile turned cold. If you don't like it, then go catch Aslan. Lydia froze. What? Devon's voice echoed in the darkness. If you don't want to marry that old man, then go catch Aslan. Lydia staggered back in shock. What? I see now. You're treating me well because you want to get close to Aslan through me. Richard, you cheated on me, and now you're afraid I might marry Aslan. So you're trying to shove me off on some old man. Lydia burned with anger. I expected this, but living through it is still infuriating. She clenched her fists. Damn it. Lydia lifted her head, her eyes blazing with resolve. If everyone sees me as a burden, then I'll become a woman no one dares marry. Then I'll leave with Aslan. If Richard and Giselle marry, they may fall in love. Even if they don't marry, they may still fall in love. A cold smile tugged at Lydia's lips. That way, I can destroy both of them. Plan D, become a holy woman. Lydia wore elegant clothes, a green gemstone brooch pinned to her chest. Her eyes were firm. Becoming clergy was a path nobles often chose after causing a social scandal. Once you became a member of the clergy, you could no longer employ servants, and because of the vow of chastity, you also could not date. Lydia sat on the bed, twisting a white garment in her hands. I don't care at all. Back in a labor camp, I already learned how to do all kinds of chores. Lydia closed her eyes, and a slight smile of relief appeared on her lips. I won't need men anymore. Besides, vow or no vow, I was already planning to live a celibate life. Dating? Thanks to a certain someone, I've had enough. Men are all the same. Lydia suddenly grabbed the clothing tightly, teeth clenched, her face twisted with anger. Then she let her head droop, exhaustion filling her eyes. Lydia stood up. I'm changed. Time to go. A calculating smile curved her lips. They probably think if they post guards at the door, I won't be able to leave. Barefoot, Lydia tiptoed lightly toward the window. If the door is blocked, then I'll just have to use the window. Without hesitation, Lydia climbed out. All right, let's go. In the Marquis estate garden under the night sky, Aslan hid among the bushes. I know things will only get worse if I'm caught sneaking in. But if I pay a formal visit, it'll cause an uproar. I have no other choice. First, I need to see the young lady as soon as possible. I sent men to the eastern region, and their report confirmed that there really is a labor camp there. There are too many eyes on me. I can't send a message carelessly, so I had to come in person. Today, I must get a proper explanation. Aslan crossed the garden, his steps firm. Suddenly, he stopped short. A figure jumped down from an upper-story window. A white gown cut through the night air. Lydia's face was full of panic. I practiced this in the labor camp. Why is my landing failing? Lydia looked up, and Aslan's face filled her vision. Miss Lydia, why are you here? Lydia stared at him blankly. Sir Aslan? Aslan looked up at her. What trouble have you gotten yourself into this time? Lydia struggled to steady herself. It's a long story. Aslan stretched out his arms. Forget that for now. Just jump down. Lydia cried out. What? Aslan called up to her. I'll catch you. Trust me. Lydia lost her balance and fell toward the ground again. Aslan caught Lydia securely in his arms. The body he held was shockingly light. Did Marquis Devon mistreat her? Lydia grabbed tightly at his collar. Sir Aslan. Aslan spoke in a low voice. Even if you're uncomfortable, please bear with it for a moment. Lydia's cheeks turned red. It's not that. My clothes. She buried her face against his chest. My skirt is sliding up. Could you put me down first? Aslan did not answer. He only looked at her quietly. You mean this? Lydia raised her head in confusion. Why is he hesitating? Putting me down shouldn't be difficult. Suddenly, Aslan tightened his arms and held her even more firmly. Lydia's body stiffened. Wait, could it be? Aslan's hand did not loosen. Instead, it moved toward Lydia's thigh and gently pulled down the hem of her skirt. He misunderstood. He thought I was asking him to fix my skirt. Lydia trembled. His hand is touching my skin. Footsteps echoed from the end of the corridor. Several maids appeared, carrying lanterns. Sir Aslan, it sounds like someone's here. One maid called out loudly. Where on earth did you go? Holding Lydia, Aslan swiftly moved aside. He slipped into deeper shadow. Looking down at the person in his arms, he saw her cheeks flushed red. Good thing it's nighttime. Aslan coughed lightly, trying to hide his awkwardness. For now, Aslan set Lydia down and turned, crouching halfway. Get on my back. Lydia stared in astonishment. What? You want to leave the Marquis estate, don't you? I'll take you out. Lydia hesitated. This is embarrassing, but following him is the safest way. She climbed onto Aslan's back and wrapped her arms around his neck. Aslan stood up. Hold tight. If you fall, I won't take responsibility. Lydia answered confidently, don't worry. My arm strength is very good. Aslan suddenly burst forward like an arrow released from a bow. Can a human even run this fast? With Lydia on his back, he easily vaulted over the wall. How is that even possible? Aslan stopped on top of the wall. Miss, I trust you won't scream in this situation. Lydia looked puzzled. What do you mean by that? I finally understand why he told me not to scream. He's going to jump from here. Holding Lydia, Aslan leaped into the night, dropping toward the forest outside the estate. Under the moonlight, the forest was silent. Her arms were still tightly wrapped around his neck. Are you trying to strangle me? Lydia suddenly let go. Right? Why did you show up so suspiciously? If I openly enter and leave the Marquis estate, it will invite strange rumors. Just taking an unconscious young lady back to the estate already caused endless gossip. Lydia's eyes shifted uneasily. Is that so? Then can you take me to the temple? Aslan turned slightly. Miss, you cannot go to the temple. What? Aslan turned his back to her. You said you met me in your previous life, but it seems you don't really understand me. He clenched the whip in his hand. Did you think I would easily let go of someone who knows my secret? Aslan turned his head, a cold smile rising on his lips. His red eyes gleamed in the moonlight. Under the starry sky, Aslan closed his eyes. A voice echoed in his memory. Son, you must hide your true identity. Trust no one. Those were his mother's last words. On my 9th birthday, the former emperor of Bayern falsely accused my entire family of treason. Flames devoured the castle. I lost my grandfather and father. Only my mother and I, along with a few relatives, survived. During our flight, we lost teacher Bayern and nursemaid Nera as well. After many hardships, we sought refuge in the border Marquis. My father's close friend, Brahmin Adis, lived there. Not long afterward, my mother also passed away. That is how I became Aslan Adis. Brahmin placed a hand on Aslan's shoulder as they stood before a crude grave. Tears slid down Aslan's face. His mother's voice echoed again. Remember, my son, you must never trust anyone. Aslan replied in a low voice, Yes, mother. Aslan never trusted others easily. It was a rule of survival bought with blood and tears. As an adult, Aslan wore military dress, a hand on the hilt of his sword, his gaze cold. He would trust no one, least of all a woman who could not even leave a scratch on him. Lydia spoke softly. Sir, is this kidnapping? Aslan's expression stayed guarded. Yes. Then this is... Aslan's pupils narrowed. Restraint? Lydia was wrapped in a huge white cloth like a gift. This thing? Aslan turned sideways, his tone icy. You'd better behave. No one here can help you. Lydia was completely unafraid. If I make trouble, what then? Will you kill me? Aslan's eyes narrowed. If necessary. Lydia leaned forward slightly. Judging by your reaction, it seems you've already found the labor camp. Aslan lowered his gaze. Yes, I also confirmed the whereabouts of my teacher and nursemaid. Lydia smiled brightly. That's wonderful. Aslan remained expressionless. There's nothing to be happy about. It only means your information is useless to me now. But you'll still need me. Aslan paused slightly. What did you say? Lydia smiled with her eyes closed. If you want that land, the borderlands of the Marquis, then you need me. Aslan let out a faint laugh. Sorry, miss. Marquis Devon and His Majesty have already promised that land to me. The two sat facing each other as the distant town lay under the night sky. A slight smile touched Lydia's lips. You are unexpectedly naive, sir. Aslan opened his mouth in disbelief. Naive? You're calling me naive? Lydia's eyes sharpened. Do you really think a man who abandoned his own fiancée would keep his promise to you? Until the day I died, Aslan still never got that land. Lydia continued pressing him. Once the young Viscount learns that you want it, he'll never hand it over easily. Devon only wants to keep you under his control. Then her tone shifted. But if you marry me, that land can become my dowry. Aslan's expression darkened. Lydia immediately waved her hands. Don't worry. Sir, I have no intention of marrying you either. Her gaze was firm. So help me, and I'll help you. Aslan lifted his eyes. How exactly will you help me? Lydia blinked playfully. First, I will cure Father's incurable illness and bring him to my side. Ever since Father fell ill, Devon has controlled everything. Aslan looked puzzled. Lydia cast him a sideways glance. Why should I tell someone who just threatened to kill me? Aslan asked. That's hardly the attitude of someone seeking cooperation. Lydia leaned back. Fine, if you're that curious, just assume I plan to use knowledge from the future. Aslan looked baffled. More nonsense. Lydia's expression turned serious. Since you found the labor camp, shouldn't you start believing me? Aslan said nothing, his gaze deep and unreadable. He clearly had no intention of openly asking how she knew his identity. Aslan clenched his fist, but she did have a point. The current emperor carries royal blood. Trusting him easily is impossible. Clinging to an uncertain promise would be foolish. Something shifted in Aslan's eyes. The problem was that Lydia was not entirely trustworthy either. After all, not long ago, she had been saying things like she died from taking poison and came back to life. Still, that was better than doing nothing. Keeping her close would also make it easier to watch her. Aslan raised his head. What do you need me to do? Lydia's eyes lit up. After you rescue the people in the labor camp, take me to the border of the Marquisate. Oh, right. Before that, we need to visit the temple. Aslan folded his hands. Are you going there to repent for your sins? Lydia lifted her chin. Repent? Do I look like the kind of person who would do that? Aslan said, You really are? His words cut off. His fingertips tightened slightly on the cloth wrapped around her. Lydia spread her arms with a radiant smile, as if bathed in holy light. I'm going to become a priestess. A bead of cold sweat slid down Aslan's face. A person who won't even repent wants to become clergy? Lydia looked smug. Don't misunderstand. It's only a disguise. If this goes on, I'll be forced into marriage. Aslan gave a slight sigh. I understand. I'll escort you to the temple tomorrow. Lydia held out her hand. Good. Then I'll be in your care. Aslan's expression remained calm. He tugged on the cloth wrapped around Lydia. Lydia looked confused. We're on the same side now. There's no need to keep me tied up, is there? Aslan cast her a cold glance. No need. Take a look at what you're wearing. What I'm wearing. Isn't it just sleepwear? Aslan looked aside. Yes. You're wearing a nightgown. There are no suitable clothes in the knight's quarters. I'll prepare something for you in the morning. For tonight, you'll sleep here. Lydia's cheeks reddened slightly. In Sir Aslan's bedroom? Aslan answered yes. Lydia smiled brightly. I can't very well throw the room's owner out. I'll sleep in a guest room. Aslan put a hand on her shoulder. There's no guest room. You can sleep here. With a light push, he pressed her back onto the bed. Her cheeks flushed red. Aslan lowered his gaze. But Lydia lay on the bed, eyes wide. Are we sleeping here together? Aslan looked down at her, his eyes cold. Are you serious right now? Lydia hurriedly shook her head. And no, that's not what I meant. Since this is your bedroom, I just thought maybe there was a chance. Her voice grew smaller and smaller. Of course, I know nothing would happen. You wouldn't do anything to me. Aslan's tone turned stern. My lady, you should be more cautious. Lydia looked puzzled. Aslan's gaze sharpened. Your eyes say everything. In your mind, I'm not even a proper man. Otherwise, he braced one hand beside Lydia's ear. How can you be so sure that I have no improper thoughts toward you? Aslan looked down at her, and in his eyes flickered a softness, so faint it was almost impossible to notice. Lydia's cheeks turned red. She buried her face in the blanket. Richard once said there wasn't a man in the world who would want anything to do with me. So I never imagined you might think that way. Lydia looked up, her eyes full of apology. I'm sorry if I offended you, sir. Cold sweat appeared at Aslan's temple. He clenched his fist. What exactly had the emperor said to his former fiancée? Aslan hurriedly explained, I wasn't trying to blame you, my lady. I was only warning you of every possibility in advance. Aslan turned and walked toward the door. I'll leave now. Please rest well. Then a sound came from Lydia's stomach. He stopped awkwardly. Lydia's stomach growled loudly. She froze instantly. In the silence, the sound was especially clear. She buried her head deep in the blanket. Of all times now, but he's a gentleman. He'll definitely pretend not to have heard it. Aslan's voice came. Are you hungry? Lydia shot upright from under the blanket and shouted no. Her face burned red. Oh no, what an idiot. A steaming meal was placed by the bed. Bacon and eggs with salad giving off a rich aroma. Lydia narrowed her eyes in bliss and lifted a spoonful into her mouth. Aslan watched her eat so happily, her face still red. She's adorable. He thought about it. Her family probably never fed her properly. Even so, she still believed herself loved. Watching the way she ate, Aslan thought she looked like some small animal. A rabbit. Lydia paused when she heard that. A rabbit? Aslan corrected himself slightly, looking more carefully, maybe more like an eastern rabbit. Lydia's eyes shone with curiosity. What's an eastern rabbit? Aslan explained, a pink-furred animal that lives in the northern forests. If you go to the borderlands, you'll see them often. Lydia's eyes sparkled. A pink rabbit must be so cute. Can one be kept as a pet? Aslan fell silent. After a moment, he spoke. It would probably be difficult for you to raise one. Lydia tilted her head in confusion. Outside the window, dawn gradually brightened the sky. A new day had begun. A physician in white took Giselle's pulse and looked up. The child is healthy. Giselle smiled as if she already knew. Richard leaned on one hand, his gaze cold, seemingly unmoved by the news. Giselle spoke tentatively. Your Majesty. Giselle lowered her eyes. Saw thee. It's just that Aslan and Lydia's relationship has been bothering me. Giselle looked up at Richard. Do you still have feelings for Lydia? Richard turned away from Giselle. He stopped walking, a smile tugging at his lips. My queen, the position I want is the one on Aslan's side. Richard turned back and drew Giselle into his arms. He leaned close to Giselle's ear. I want to bind him to the capital somehow and make him my guard. A dark look crossed Giselle's eyes. It would be troublesome if those two got married. Richard took Giselle's hand. If you're that concerned, I can pay a visit to the Marquis. I'll go see Devon and get a quick grasp of the situation. Giselle leaned into Richard's arms, a victorious smile appearing on her face. Early the next morning, sunlight filled the room. Lydia woke and rubbed her eyes. She heard a knock at the door. Lydia rubbed her sleepy eyes. Sir Aslan? The door creaked open, and a strange man stood at the entrance. He wore a servant's uniform and held a towel in his hands. Lydia looked bewildered. Who is he? The man reached a hand toward her. Someone is here to see you. Lydia answered politely, oh, thank you. A red-haired man was glaring at her. Why is he staring at me like that? The red-haired man spoke. Our commander is not someone a lady like you deserves. If you're planning to play any tricks, you better give up now. Lydia's cheeks instantly flushed red. What? The red-haired man sneered. You're not married yet, are you? You'd be better off going back to cling to the emperor. Lydia flared with anger. What is wrong with this man? How can he be so rude the first time we meet? Lydia suppressed her anger. May I ask your name, sir? The red-haired man answered disdainfully. Even if I told you, you'd forget it. A lowly name like mine would only dirty a lady's ears. Lydia trembled with anger. Who exactly is this man? Aslan looked at Lydia. She seemed to be burning with rage. My lady, why are you staring at an empty corridor? Lydia turned back abruptly. That. Lydia hesitated. Should I report him? No, I still have to get along with him once we reach the border. Better not make things awkward. Lydia steadied herself. It's nothing. What is it? Aslan looked serious. Last night, I sent men to the Marquis' estate. We need to go to the temple quickly. Lydia's eyes lit up. Understood. The grand gates of the temple shone in the morning light. Lydia and Aslan walked side by side. A familiar voice rang out. What a coincidence, Miss Lydia. At the temple so early in the morning. Lydia stood on the steps, dressed in splendid robes, a gentle smile on her face. Her expression solemn. Lydia said, as a faithful servant of the goddess Anastasia, I wish to devote my life to her once more. A white-haired high priest looked troubled. Lydia continued, the goddess has shown me the emptiness of life and guided me to look only toward her. The white-haired high priest looked at her. Miss Lydia, if we allowed you to become a holy woman, it would damage the temple's image. Lydia presented a thick book. Therefore, I wish to dedicate this life to the goddess. Please accept me. Let me become one of the clergy. The high priest's eyes instantly turned cold as he stared hard at Lydia. The white-haired high priest cleared his throat. Anastasia has said that even the smallest sincerity must not be overlooked. Just as I expected, the goddess is merciful. The white-haired high priest turned to Lydia. However, Miss Lydia, you do know that a vow of chastity requires witnesses, don't you? Lydia smiled. Of course. I have already prepared everything. They will be here shortly. The white-haired high priest reminded her, not just anyone is qualified to witness it. Only certain people may witness such a solemn vow. Lydia smiled confidently. There's no need to worry. A calculating glint shone in her eyes. "Today my witness will be," Lydia announced, "Her Highness, the future Empress." The great doors of the temple slowly opened. Giselle entered in full dress, followed by several knights. The previous night, Lydia had handed over a letter. "Sir Aslan, I have a request. Please deliver this to the estate of Baron Melbourne's daughter, Alice." Aslan took the letter. "What is this?" Lydia's gaze seemed to pierce through the envelope. "A letter asking Giselle to come to the central temple tomorrow morning." Aslan's brow tightened slightly. "Do you think the future empress will come?" Lydia's gaze was firm. "She will, before the royal wedding. Giselle wants to be registered under the Evans family name. She may be my relative, but in truth she is a distant one, almost no different from commoner. Richard has an inferiority complex because his mother was a commoner." Lydia's eyes turned cold. "That is the key. But with father in his current state, Giselle needs his approval in order to be entered into the family registry. So she will definitely come." Footsteps echoed through the temple hall. Giselle approached in a purple dress. "Lydia, turn around. Thank you for coming." A slight smile touched Giselle's lips. "Lydia, you've chosen a difficult path." Lydia smiled gently. "No, I should be the one thanking you for coming." Giselle looked a little surprised. May I speak informally now?" "Of course. I never intended to stand above you. There's no need for formality between sisters." Lydia smiled, while Giselle's gaze swept over her. "So Lydia plans to become a holy woman. It seems there really is nothing between her and Sir Aslan." Lydia looked straight at her. "Giselle." Lydia lowered her eyes. "I'll say this plainly." Lydia's tone was calm. "I won't stop you from using the same surname as mine, but I have no intention of treating you as family either." Giselle let out a light laugh. "That's all right. For me, that is enough." The appointment of the holy woman was successfully concluded under the high priest's supervision. However, then a hand slammed down on the table. Devon rose from his seat. "What kind of holy woman are you trying to become?" Lydia, standing beside Aslan, answered yes. Lydia announced, "From this moment on, I will follow the goddess's teachings." Devon roared. Who decided that?" "I will go with Sir Aslan to the outskirts of the Marquisate and build a temple there." Devon stared in disbelief. "What? He agreed to that?" A faint smile rested on Aslan's lips. "Yes, I intend to take her with me." Devon's pupil shrank. He was taking Lydia to the frontier. Someone who had become a holy woman. Devon rested his chin on his hand. Did Lydia not have feelings after all? As for Aslan, he cleared his throat. "Very well. Since Sir Aslan agrees, I have no reason to object. As long as the two of you love each other, that's enough. A holy woman's position can be given up at any time. If they suffer together on that harsh frontier, Lydia will surely come to rely on Aslan." Devon smiled, but when he looked at Lydia, his gaze turned ice cold. "Don't even think about taking anything from this house with you." Lydia glared back in shock. "What did you say? You're a holy woman now. You must live a life of poverty. A few changes of clothes will be enough. It'll be cold there." Lydia bit her lip to herself. "That stingy bastard." Devon put on a warm smile. "Sir Aslan, since you've come all this way, have a cup of tea." Aslan tried to refuse. "No, I'm fine," but Devon grabbed him insistently. "Don't refuse." The teacup was set down softly. Devon adjusted his posture. "My apologies. I may have been a bit harsh just now. More importantly, you, Lydia, since when did you become so pious?" Aslan remained expressionless as he lifted his teacup. "Pious would be an overstatement. I simply thought it wasn't good for the frontier to have no temple." Devon looked at him. What a stiff man. He turned to Aslan. "She's my sister, but she's beautiful, isn't she?" A troubled look suddenly crossed his face. "I worry that useless men in the frontier may try to court her. So take good care of her. If she seems lonely, you may comfort her first. Other than you, who else could she rely on?" Aslan's cheeks flushed red. He clenched his fists. Holding back his emotions, Aslan said if someone heard that, they might misunderstand. Devon burst into laughter. "What? Ha! Sir Aslan, you're such a gentleman. That's what I like about you." Aslan said nothing. He wasn't worried about Lydia at all. He was selling out his own sister. Had this young Marquis always been like this? I knew he was ambitious, but he once fought side by side with the current emperor. I thought he had at least some sense of decency. Aslan's gaze darkened. At least that young lady got one thing right. We would never hand over that land so easily. Devon wanted to keep Lydia bound to his side at any cost. He was a man who, for greed, would do anything to keep what had been promised to him. Devon smiled in satisfaction as he clenched his fist. Aslan rose from the sofa. "I should prepare to leave." Devon asked, "When do you plan to depart?" Aslan answered, "In 2 days." Devon thought it over. So he was leaving without attending the imperial wedding. Good. Lydia probably wouldn't want to see that spectacle anyway. Aslan turned to leave. Then he walked toward the door, and Lydia quickly followed after him. "Sir Aslan, Are you leaving now? Aslan stopped. Yes, then I'll see you in 2 days. He looked at Lydia. Do you intend to stay in a place like this? Lydia looked puzzled. A place like this? I still need to pack. Aslan said, if it's only a few clothes, I can pack them now and we can leave together. Lydia rose onto her tiptoes and leaned close to Aslan's ear, whispering softly, I have something to do. A sly smile curved her lips. Aslan's face instantly turned scarlet. Lydia thought to herself, just wait, Devin. You want to play dirty? Did you really think I'd leave with nothing but clothes? Barefoot, Lydia slipped quietly into a dark room. Father was probably in the main castle now, but the treasure he'd hidden was still in this residence, which meant I'm going to clean out Father's secret vault. Lydia lit a fire with magic. It's fine. Father taught me personally how to use it in emergencies. Let's see. The vault should be in his office. Feeling through the darkness of the study, Lydia pushed aside a row of shelves and revealed a hidden door. She stepped into the space behind it. What's this? Lydia pulled away a huge white sheet. Did Devin hide something here? Under the cloth was a black coffin. Lydia's pupils contracted. Carved into it was a line of text, Cahal Evans. Lydia's face went pale. Why was Father's coffin here? He was still alive. Devin, you madman. Her fists tightened. Father was still struggling at death's door. And you'd already prepared a coffin for him. Lydia's eyes turned cold. Father wasn't a good husband, but he was a decent parent. She remembered their father gently stroking Devin's head. He never deserved to be treated like this by his own son. Flashes of memory passed by. Father had always supported his children. Family had once been everything to him. Lydia lifted her head and stared into empty space. Devin, no matter what you do, this coffin will never be used. Lydia moved through the study, her fingers tracing across the rows of books. She turned and searched between shelves. Found it. Lydia pulled out a book, and a hidden drawer sprang open. She opened the wooden box inside. It was filled with dazzling diamonds. The diamonds Father had mentioned. After the rebellion succeeded, before I left for the capital, Father had told me about this safe. Lying on his sickbed, he had taken Lydia's hand and said that if she needed to, she could use them. Tears welled in Lydia's eyes. He must have known that, in order to support Richard, I had already spent everything I had. Father, I will make good use of them. Just wait for me a little longer, Father. She gripped a needle tightly. I will save you. Lydia's gaze hardened, hope blazing in her eyes. Sunlight poured over the magnificent palace. Inside the great hall, Richard asked, You're going to the countryside without even attending my wedding? I am truly hurt. Aslan lowered his head. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. Richard sat on the throne with one leg crossed over the other. I hear you're taking Lydia with you. Aslan nodded faintly. Yes, I believe establishing a temple on the front lines will be helpful. Richard narrowed his eyes. She has only just entered the clergy, so nothing will change for a while. But religious office can always be resigned, which means if the two fall in love, Lydia can abandon her position at any time. Richard looked down at Aslan. I respect your intentions, but you should be wary of Lydia. Aslan turned, his profile sharp. Do you think I would lose to that lady? Richard smiled faintly. That's not what I mean. That woman is insane. I'm warning you not to get entangled with her. Richard lowered his head in thought. Compared to me, a newly enthroned emperor, the Evans Marquisate was already too powerful. If they gained Aslan and the Black Wolf Knights as well, the consequences would be endless. I must prevent Aslan and Lydia from joining hands. Aslan spoke. Your Majesty, you seem to be mistaken. Miss Lydia and I have no relationship, nor do I intend for us to. Richard lifted his gaze to scrutinize him. Do you truly feel nothing at all for Lydia? Aslan answered openly. I have no such thoughts. Absolutely none. Richard laughed. That's true enough. You have no reason to be interested in damaged goods. Aslan's gaze turned icy at once. So this was how he spoke of his own former fiancée. Richard tapped the armrest of the throne. Regarding the remnants of the former regime, I shouldn't have spared Viscount Hebron's life. Wouldn't you agree? Aslan fell into thought. The young Marquis, and now the Emperor too. Why did they all treat that lady so cruelly? 2 days later, Lydia entered the hall with a smile. It's good to see you, sir. Aslan remained expressionless. Are you ready to depart today? He looked her over. You don't look well. Lydia waved a hand. I'm Fina. Just a little tired. Aslan's brows furrowed faintly. Had the young Marquis bullied her again? Lydia turned toward Devin. Brother, can we leave now? Devin stopped her. Wait, he pulled out a document. Before you go, you need to sign Giselle's adoption consent form. The smile on Lydia's face instantly froze. She picked up the pen and signed. Devin stood beside her. Also, I told you to take only a few clothes, but your luggage is too much. Lydia spun around sharply. What? Devin certainly copped here, Bake. Wait. He yanked hard. The bag tore open and clothes spilled all over the floor. Devin, Aslan's cheeks reddened. Those are... Lydia dropped to the floor. What exactly are you trying to do? Even clergy need undergarments. You gone too far. Devin frowned. I thought she was hiding something, but it really is only clothes. Lydia clutched her skirt tightly, trembling with rage. Devin remained expressionless. My mistake. You may go now. Lydia glared at him, then turned away. Let's go, sir. Dragging her torn luggage, she left the hall together with Aslan. Their footsteps echoed through the corridor. Inside the carriage, silence reigned. Aslan looked at her. She looked deeply upset, understandably so, after being humiliated like that. He spoke again. Miss, won't you put the bag down? Carrying it the whole time must be uncomfortable. Lydia hugged the bag tightly. No, there's extremely expensive underwear in here. She lowered her eyes, her long lashes hiding the exhaustion in them. Inside were diamonds, and extremely expensive underwear, studded with diamonds. I'd expected my luggage to be searched. Back in the labor camp, I became incredibly good at sewing. They'd never think I'd take apart my undergarments and sew the diamonds into the lining. Lydia looked at Aslan. This one is special. Would you like to see? Aslan flushed bright red. What? He cleared his throat. I'm not a pervert. Please don't joke like that. Mississippi, Lydia huffed. How stiff. How long are you going to keep calling me miss? I'm clergy now, not nobility. Aslan thought for a moment. Then I shall call you Priestess Lydia. Lydia smiled. You could just call me Lydia. Aslan's expression didn't change. Priestess Lydia will do. Lydia looked out the window. By the way, after we leave the capital, how long until we reach the inn? Aslan looked ahead. We should arrive by evening. He continued. At that point, the two of us will quietly slip away and head to the Eastern Labor Camp. We'll rescue the people there, and before they reach the Marquis, we'll rejoin the main force. It will be a difficult journey. Leaning forward, Aslan asked, Are you truly certain you want to go? Lydia turned back, smiling brightly. Don't worry, sir. I'm Fina. As long as we can save the people in the labor camp, I don't care how hard it is. In her mind, she saw those suffering people again. Lydia's gaze turned resolute. Just wait for me, everyone. I'm coming for you. Sunlight filtered through the leaves and fell across the winding road. The carriage sped on. After arriving at the inn, Aslan headed east with several subordinates. Turning to the side, he introduced one of them. This is Marin. We will disguise ourselves as members of the Marin Merchant Company and enter the Count's territory. Lydia smiled. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Marin. Aslan continued. This is my adjutant, Cedric. When Lydia saw Cedric, a trace of familiarity flashed in her eyes. I met him in my previous life. He was a very kind man. Lydia smiled and extended a hand. It's nice to meet you, Cedric Raymond. Cedric looked flattered. Goodness, you even remember my surname. The red-haired youth beside him looked disdainful. I'm not the sort of person she remembers by surname alone. Cedric suddenly said, Randall. Lydia looked toward Randall. That man, those clothes, that face. Lydia remembered him. Ever since we first met, that man has kept picking on me. Cedric explained awkwardly. Please forgive him, milady. That's just how he is. Lydia forced a smile. Yes. She made herself endure it. Causing unnecessary trouble would do no good. Lydia closed her eyes. I thought if I endured it once, that would be the end of it. I never expected it to keep going like this. Lydia remembered the way Randall had behaved. He provoked her for no reason and looked at Sir Aslan with a look of comparison. Why had he been acting like that ever since last time? Aslan's voice was flat. Randall, you've had a lot of complaints since yesterday, haven't you? Randall replied sharply. If that woman weren't here, I wouldn't have any complaints at all. Lydia's anger flared. What? Cedric shouted. Randall, you bastard. I think you have too much free time. Cedric punched him in the face. Randall ducked his head after being hit. Why'd you hit me? Aslan spoke coldly. Come here. Randall. Aslan's voice carried over. Randall, what's the matter? Lydia thought uneasily. I don't know. Maybe I just rubbed him the wrong way. Could he be Sir Aslan's family? Or are the two of them dating? Lydia suddenly jolted. Wait, no way. Looking at Aslan's profile, Lydia thought, now that I think about it, he's incredibly handsome. Though it came out of nowhere, the more she thought about it, the stranger it seemed. With a face like that, and still not a single scandal, was that even possible? How many women in the capital must have wanted him? Lydia imagined Aslan surrounded by noble ladies. Countless admirers gathered around him. Yet he remained unmoved. Lydia stole a glance at Randall. Could Randall perhaps be the one driving away all the women who approached him? Aslan glanced at her sharply. I don't know what you're thinking, but you had better stop. Lydia muttered under her breath. Could it be that you and Randall are that sort of pair? A picture rose in Lydia's mind of Aslan and Randall leaning intimately against one another. Aslan's face immediately twisted. Absolutely not. Lydia looked unconvinced. Really? Then why does he treat me like that? At an inn near the Eastern labor camp, night cloaked a wooden house. Cedric smiled apologetically. Sorry, Randall made you uncomfortable. He has his reasons. Please try to understand. Lydia puffed out her cheeks. What reason could possibly justify that? Cedric looked troubled. Well, Cedric began to explain. As you know, most of our order came from commoner backgrounds. We were granted titles only after successfully carrying out the rebellion. Lydia lowered her head. Yes, a bitter smile touched Cedric's face. But Randall was born a slave. Randall stood with the other knights, head lowered. So even after becoming a knight, he was never given a surname. Lydia listened quietly. I see. Could it be that he was simply ashamed of being a knight in name only? Cedric stroked his chin. I don't know whether you remember, but when we returned to the capital after our victory, I once recommended Randall to be your guard knight. Cedric cleared his throat. But at the time, milady, you said, how can a slave be a knight? Lydia froze, as if struck by lightning. Oh no! Lydia covered her mouth as the memory came rushing back. Back then, I was a thoroughbred elitist. The Lydia of the past had been arrogant, intoxicated by dreams of marrying Richard and joining the royal family. She had spat out that line with contempt. How can a slave be a knight? The present Lydia looked stricken. She bit her lip hard. Only now am I finally realizing the mistake I made. With her back to Cedric, Lydia thought I didn't even remember that I was the one who hurt him first, and yet I was angry at him. Lydia sat alone in the empty inn hall, illuminated by a single shaft of light. Was I reborn so that this time I could truly live properly? Lydia let out a long sigh. Turning to Cedric, she said, Thank you for telling me, Sir Cedric. Otherwise, I might have made an even bigger mistake. Cedric waved his hand. Haha, it's nothing. It's getting late. I think I'd like to go apologize to Randall. Footsteps sounded. She paused on the stairs. Aslan came down from upstairs. Lydia looked surprised. Sir? Aslan stepped in front of her. Please prepare to depart. Miss. Lydia hesitated. Wait, what about Sir Randall? Aslan turned his face aside, eyes firm. Later. The clouds are covering the moon. This is the perfect time to slip in. Lydia looked at him, her gaze turning resolute. Understood. At the Eastern labor camp, night was deep. Maria collapsed to the ground and prayed to the goddess. If only I could have a piece of bread, preferably one coated in sugar. Nera held out some bread. Maria, if you're hungry, eat some of mine. Maria pushed her hand away. No, Nera. Nera insisted. Don't say that. You're pregnant. You need to eat well. Maria forced a smile. I was joking. I am tired. I want to sleep. I told Nera it was a joke, but whenever I think of the child in my belly not getting even a proper meal, I feel overwhelmed with guilt. In the darkness, a hand shook Maria's shoulder. Maria, Maria. Maria's eyes flew open, her pupils shrinking. The smell of bread. Nera, wake up. Maria rubbed her eyes. Nera, I was only joking when I said I wanted bread. She lifted her head and froze. Huh? Lydia was looking down at her, her face half hidden in shadow. Maria asked, Who are you? Lydia smiled and placed a finger to her lips. She held out the bread. Take this, then quietly come with me. Maria took the bread blankly. It was covered in sugar. Looking up at Lydia, Maria asked, Are you a messenger of the goddess? Lydia smiled. I'm a priestess, but not a messenger. You may not remember, but you once helped me a great deal. That's why I've come to take you away. Lydia extended her hand. I'll explain the details later. Come with me. Maria jumped to her feet. Wait, can't the others come too? Lydia turned back. If you mean Byron and Nera, they're already over there. Aslan stood in the distance, with Byron and Nera clutching him tightly like a lifeline. Maria's eyes widened. That man, that was the person they had been desperately searching for. Sir Aslan. Lydia looked toward Aslan. Since I brought Maria, let's hurry. Lowering her voice, Lydia added, The guards are patrolling the other side. They won't come here for a while. From here, we go straight into the forest. A sharp crack sounded from the trees. A voice instantly tore through the silence. Who's there? Aslan and the others all stiffened. Another wary voice came from the woods. Who's there? Everyone stared toward the source. A man carrying a lantern emerged from deeper in the forest. Lydia's pupils shrank. Row, she blurted Grandpa Robert. Robert looked confused. Miss, Do you know me? Startled, Lydia said to Robert, why are you wandering around in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? You scare me half to death. Robert replied, you were the one making noise first. Why do you have to get mad at me? He looked over their group. Looks like you're trying to escape from here. He withdrew his gaze. That has nothing to do with me. Robert turned to leave. If you don't get caught, then good luck. I don't have much time left anyway. You young people should go build lives of your own. Lydia's eyes were firm. No, Robert urged them. Enough. Stop dawdling. Hurry up and go. Lydia asked, would you be willing to come with us? Aslan grabbed Lydia's arm. Mississippi, that wasn't part of the plan. Lydia shook off his hand. You know there are mines on the frontier too, right? Grandpa Robert is a mining expert. He'd be useful if we brought him. She extended her hand. This is our only chance. Come with us. The others also began urging him. Yeah, Grandpa, hurry. Let's go together. Surrounded by everyone, Robert's eyes grew moist. He hesitated. An old man like me doesn't have much time left. What if I become a burden on the way? Nara handed him some bread. What are you saying? If we go together to the very end. Aslan let out a resigned sigh. Let's go. The group quickly disappeared into the night. Morning sunlight pierced through the trees, and hoofbeats rang out. Lydia rode with Aslan on the same horse. She looked back at their companions behind them, making sure everyone was safe and unharmed. Aslan looked down and asked, are you feeling unwell anywhere? Lydia shook her head. No, it's just. Her expression grew awkward. I've been riding too long. My butt hurts a little. Aslan said flatly, I said this before. Please watch your language. Miss. Lydia looked unconcerned. What's wrong with saying but? It's just a part of the body. It's not like I asked you to put ointment on it. Aslan tightened his reins. If you truly make such a request, I will make you get off the horse immediately. His voice turned cold. Unfortunately, I have no desire to ride together with a pervert. Lydia pouted. You're awfully picky. Then she added, and you got it wrong. Aslan said, you don't seem like a priestess at all. I can't bring myself to say it. Lydia turned her head. You seem to have no trouble insulting me. Just call me Lydia. For a moment, Aslan was speechless. Quietly, he repeated Lydia. His cheeks flushed faintly. He cleared his throat. More importantly, that mine you mentioned earlier. Do you mean the silver mine on the frontier? Lydia nodded. Yes, that mine never turned a profit. Even a late marquis gave up developing it. Aslan smiled confidently. Priestess, you really don't know anything. Lydia continued. Places with silver mines usually have magic stones buried nearby too. There may be a magic stone mine on the frontier. Aslan's gaze sharpened. Where did you learn that? Lydia lifted her chin proudly. Of course, Grandpa Robert told me in my previous life. Aslan's expression turned complicated. Here she goes again, talking nonsense. She also discovered the mine in the labor camp, talked about dying and coming back, about returning to the past. I investigated her background and found nothing unusual. Other than the Marquis, she spent her entire life in the capital. She should have no connection to Duke Byron's family, nor any reason to know Byron or Nara. But could a lie really be this airtight? Just as she said, there really was a labor camp in the Eastern District. The people I was searching for were there. And when we met that old man earlier, she called out his name immediately. Aslan drew in a slow breath. Could she really have come back from death? Lydia suddenly patted him on the back, interrupting his thoughts. Anyway, if we really do find a magic stone mine, I want a huge share of it. Got that? Aslan stared ahead, eyes firm. What do you plan to do with that money? Lydia's gaze drifted into the distance. Once my revenge is over, I'll go to a warm island in the south. I hate winter. Aslan tightened his grip on the reins. If she really had spent time in a labor camp, then hating winter made sense. Or perhaps it wasn't only winter that she hated. Aslan's thoughts skimmed through the forest. Could it be that what she hated was this empire itself? Lydia leaned against Aslan's back, sunlight spilling across her face. Her eyes closed, and she smiled contentedly. That too, I suppose. Aslan stiffened. The thought flashed through his mind suddenly. He reached out and put on Lydia's hood. She was someone unsuited to winter. In a low voice, Aslan said, that plan of yours to go south, I think it's a good one. Lydia and the others arrived at a roadside inn. The table was covered in steaming food, sausages, bread, roasted meat. Lydia called out to everyone, bread alone isn't enough. Eat plenty. Nara suddenly covered her face and started crying. Maria asked in concern, Nara, what's wrong? Choking up, Nara said, it just finally feels real. I really survived. She turned to Aslan. Young master, You're not hurt, are you? Aslan shook his head. You're the one who should be asked that, nursemaid. I'm sorry I came so late. I didn't even know you were being held in a place like that. Nera broke down in tears. Byron said, please don't apologize, sir. I'm already grateful that you came to save us. Curiously, he asked, but who is the priestess who brought us out? I've never seen her before. Aslan was about to speak, but Lydia cut in first. I'm Lydia, then quickly corrected herself. She's a priestess, but not the kind of priestess you're imagining. Maria looked embarrassed. Sorry to interrupt, but I have no connection to Duke Byron's family. So why exactly did you save me? Robert chimed in. I'm curious too. Lydia was silent for a moment. I told the truth to Aslan, but I don't want to tell these people. There's no need. There's no point in letting them know about the misery of my previous life in the labor camp and how I eventually died of illness. I'll keep those terrible memories to myself. Lydia lifted her head and looked around at them all. You may not remember, and I can't explain it in detail, she declared solemnly. But in any case, I owe all of you a great debt. Then she gave a somewhat sly smile. Just think of it that way. She turned to Grandpa Robert. And I have a special request for you. Robert pointed to himself. Me? Just me? Lydia gave him a thumbs up. At our destination, there's a mine. I'd like you to confirm whether it's a magic stone mine. If it is, I'd be even happier if you'd take charge of the mining. Robert cried out in shock. What? I thought you were helping me escape, and now you're sending me to work in another mine? An awkward silence briefly fell over the table as everyone looked at one another. After the meal, relaxed conversation continued. Maria and Nera exchanged smiles. Lydia let out a yawn. Randall walked out of the room, and Lydia's eyes followed him. She rose to her feet. I'm stepping out for some air. Lydia looked around. I definitely saw him come out here. Where'd he go? A hand suddenly landed on her shoulder. Lydia jumped with a startled cry. Randall stood behind her. Someone as lowborn as me getting noble protection? What an honor. Randall continued, what is it? Are you here to kill me, or what? Lydia, still shaken, said, no, I came to apologize. Randall turned his face slightly. Apologize? Outside the inn, the sunlight was warm. Lydia lowered her head. I'm sorry, Sir Randall. I heard from Sir Cedric that I looked down on you because of your background. Randall looked bewildered, sweat sliding down from his temple. Did the captain tell you to come apologize? Lydia leaned against the doorframe and shook her head softly. No. I'm apologizing because I belatedly realized I hurt you. Of course, I don't intend to force you to forgive me. It was only after hearing Sir Cedric mention it that I realized my mistake. Lydia raised her eyes to him. Randall said, if you don't need my forgiveness, why bother apologizing? The two faced each other on the village street, silence spreading between them. Lydia smiled gently. I just wanted to tell you that I will never make the same mistake again. Randall looked away awkwardly. If I say something rude again, you can hit me. Randall's cheeks reddened. How could a knight raise a hand against a lady? Lydia laughed. That's true, but I'm no longer a marquis's daughter. I'm a priestess. Randall grew even more flustered. Then I definitely can't hit a priestess. Lydia raised a hand to stop him. Anyway, what I wanted to say is, Randall said enough. He scratched his hair in frustration. Lydia turned and went back inside. It wasn't that deep a wound, just something unpleasant. Aslan leaned against the wall. I had been ready to stop them if they started fighting. But the more I think about it, the stranger it all is. In the past, she would never have apologized. She would have slapped Randall and flown into a rage. Ever since I became involved with that lady, everything has become strange. She knew my identity and even told me the whereabouts of the nursemaid and tutor I'd been searching for my entire life. She's changed too much, as if she'd returned from death. Aslan's eyes deepened. That's right. Crossing his arms, he thought, it's time I admit it. No matter the reason, that person is no longer the arrogant, overbearing Lydia of the past. He lowered his head in thought. Lydia smiled brilliantly in the garden. She looked up at Aslan. Why are you standing there like an idiot? Come here. She reached out, grabbed his arm, and pulled him down to sit beside her. Aslan couldn't take his eyes off her. Aslan looked at her. That was the first time he realized he had fallen in love with her. Aslan jolted awake. He was lying in bed, his cheeks burning red. What kind of dream was that? He walked downstairs. Byron turned to look at him. You're awake. Aslan asked, Sir, why aren't you sleeping more? Byron smiled. This all feels too much like a dream. I couldn't sleep. Nera smiled too. Me neither. Besides, we need to leave early anyway. So I just got up. Aslan looked at them. It really did feel like a dream. Looking at the two before him, Aslan thought, the people I believed I would never see again were standing here alive in front of me. If Miss Lydia hadn't told me, it would have taken me much longer to find them. Aslan clenched his fist. Maybe I would never have found them at all. Wait, did I ever thank her? Lydia yawned and rubbed her sleepy eyes. Good morning, or rather, good dawn. The two of them both started at once, one flustered, one confused. Lydia yawned again. I'm so sleepy. A faint blush rose on Aslan's cheeks. The more he looked at her, the more she resembled a rabbit. A little cute. Lydia noticed his gaze. Why are you looking at me like that? Is there something on my face? Aslan snapped back to himself. What am I thinking? And no, nothing. Aslan stepped in front of Lydia. I wanted to thank you. Lydia looked puzzled. What? All of a sudden, Aslan lifted his head, his gaze sincere. Thanks to you, I was able to find my tutor and my nursemaid. I'm truly very grateful. Lydia's cheeks turned pink. She hurriedly shook her head. And no, I was doing it for myself too. Aslan kept his hands clenched. Even so, I'm still grateful to you. His face reddened. Lydia said, it's too early to thank me. We haven't even fully left the East yet. Aslan considered that. That's true. Lydia nodded firmly. Right? Let's hurry. Her eyes shone. Aslan looked baffled. Dressed like that? Lydia blushed. I'm going to change. Aslan looked at her, the corners of his lips lifting slightly. Lydia puffed out her cheeks and ran upstairs. Aslan watched her back. Where are you going? Lydia shouted. Mind your own business. Biting her lower lip, her cheeks hot, Lydia thought, what is wrong with him? That's so unlike him, teasing someone like that. A carriage rolled along a forest path. As on the way there, they disguised themselves as the Marin Merchant Company while escaping the Count's territory. The carriage was cramped. Since the people from the labor camp were at risk of being caught at the checkpoint, they had been disguised as cargo. Riding on horseback, Lydia pulled on the reins. Hey, Marin, at the checkpoint, you're going to bribe the soldiers, right, merchant captain? Marin answered, yes. That way we'll get through faster. Lydia held something out. Could you use this? I want to confirm one thing. Marin opened his palm. 2 gold coins lay there quietly. I prepared something else, but all right, understood. Lydia watched him take the gold. Thank you. One of them was a gold button torn from Devon's jacket, engraved with the crest of House Evans. A carefully laid trap. If a soldier accepted that button, word of it would spread through the Count's territory. What I want to know is this. When the Count hears that news, how will he react? Richard didn't know there was an illegal labor camp here. Then how was I dragged there in my previous life? If it wasn't Richard, then could it have been Devon's doing? Lydia, her hood pulled low, looked grim. Of course, the button might never reach the Count. He might not react at all, but sooner or later, I'll find out. Lydia's hand tightened on the reins. Devon gritted his teeth, a vein throbbing on his forehead. Bastard. Richard, that bastard. Bracing both hands against the windowsill, Devon leaned forward. The rumor that Lydia would become a holy woman had already spread throughout the capital. Devon rubbed a hand over his forehead irritably. The rumor had come from the palace. Clearly, the emperor himself had spread it. The emperor was determined to keep her away from Aslan. It wasn't a false rumor, so I can't deny it publicly. Nor do I intend to make an enemy of the emperor just yet. But Devon's eyes sharpened. Butler. The butler answered as he entered. Yes, my lord. Devon gave his order. Send word to Giselle. Tell her to come to the Marquis's estate as soon as possible. A calculating smile curled on his lips. But I can't just sit back and do nothing. In a sunlit drawing room, Devon lounged lazily on a chaise. Giselle sat across from him, her stomach noticeably swollen. Giselle lifted her teacup and spoke lightly. Brother, you don't need to worry so much about those rumors. Devon turned his head. Those rumors will bind Lydia's future. How could I not worry? Though if those two really are in love, then no one could do anything about it. Giselle set down her teacup. She would only need to give up the title of Holy Woman. It's not as if it violates doctrine. Devon crossed his arms, gaze sharp. More importantly, do you still have no intention of marrying? Giselle smiled at that. Why ask so suddenly? She gently touched her necklace. I'm a member of the Evans family now. I'm merely worried the family line will be cut off. The corner of Devon's mouth lifted. I heard you still haven't forgotten your first love. He flatters me first, and now he's meddling again. Devon leaned forward, fingers interlaced. Giselle's eyes sharpened. It seems what you want is not merely my splendid name. So she saw right through me at once. Resting his cheek on one hand, Devon smiled more deeply. I'm curious what you're plotting. Speak honestly. Giselle answered frankly. My first love is only an excuse. I simply don't want to marry. So what exactly is it you want? Devon's eyes turned serious and intent. If you remain unmarried, and I have a second child, would you accept that child as your heir? Devon's pupils contracted sharply. If I have a prince adopted, Richard won't be able to cast aside the Evans family so easily. A most tempting proposal. I'll consider it, Giselle. The carriage moved in time along the forest road. We will soon leave the east and join the knights heading to the Marquis. Stretching, Lydia looked exhausted. I'm dead tired. She loosened up her body. At least now I can finally relax a little. The carriage suddenly jolted violently. Lydia pitched forward. What? A hand shot out and caught her by the collar, yanking her back. Lydia rocked backward. Thank you, Sir Randall. Randall steadied her, then let go. Lydia regained her balance and exhaled deeply. Looks like I relaxed my guard without realizing it. Lydia pressed a hand to her forehead. If Sir Randall hadn't caught me, I might have been hurt. Maybe I really should stay inside the carriage. From behind a bush, Aslan extended his hand, then slowly drew it back. He clenched his fist. I wanted to be the one to catch her. Aslan stared at Lydia's back. What exactly am I thinking? He watched Lydia rubbing her waist. Is her back hurting? Last time, she also mentioned her, but hurting. Byron's hand suddenly landed on Aslan's shoulder. Master. Aslan looked back. Byron wore a stern expression. I understand that you're a young man in your prime, but you shouldn't do that. Aslan looked confused. I don't know what you're talking about. Byron raised a brow. You shouldn't stare at a lady's backside. Aslan denied it instantly. I wasn't. Then he added defensively, and Lydia isn't a woman. She's a holy woman. Byron smiled meaningfully. Then let me correct myself. You shouldn't stare at a holy woman's backside. Aslan's entire face flushed red. I wasn't looking. Byron clasped his hands together. Lying is no good either. It seems I must pray to the goddess to forgive the sin you committed today. Lydia called lightly, Sir. Aslan's cheeks were still red. He turned his head. What is it? Lydia made a request. Before we enter the Marquis, can we stop by the nearby fields? Aslan looked at her. I don't mind, but why do you want to go there? Lydia smiled faintly. I told you before, I'm going to cure Father's illness. A determined light gleamed in her eyes. The antidote is there. Father's illness was called white ghost disease. The symptom was hallucinating white ghosts, and for a long time it had been considered incurable. But in the labor camp of my previous life, a cure was discovered. Lydia's fingers brushed over the grass. In truth, the disease was caused by drug poisoning. The culprit was an herb that grew all over the country, a plant people commonly use to brew tea. In other words, if the toxins accumulated in the body were expelled, recovery would be swift. And the method of detoxification. Lydia pulled up. She confidently held it up. This was made from the root of a yellow mountain dandelion. The teapot tilted, and golden tea poured into the cup. Dandelion petals floated on top. Aslan watched quietly, deep in thought. He looked at Lydia. Do you really think this tea can cure him? Lydia answered with a confident smile. If you don't believe me, just watch. She brought the teacup to her father's lips, and he drank it all in one gulp. In my previous life, I was trapped in a labor camp and couldn't be there for my father at the end. This time, I will never let him die in vain. 10 days later, Cahill slowly opened his eyes. His vision gradually cleared. A familiar figure came into view, Lydia. Overjoyed, Lydia burst into tears. She rushed forward and threw her arms tightly around Cahill. Father! Cahill jolted upright in bed. Lydia! He gently stroked Lydia's hair and smiled softly. Silly child, did you miss your father that much? A grown lady crying this hard. Lydia raised tearful eyes and bit down on her lip. Father! Richard! Cahill held her by the shoulders, his face full of concern. Your Majesty? What happened? Lydia's voice trembled. Richard broke off our engagement. He's going to marry Giselle. Cahill sat bolt upright. What? A flash of cold resolve passed through Lydia's eyes, and the corner of her lips curled into a sneer. Richard, just watch how I ruin you completely. Her eyes gleamed with calculation. While we were still engaged, he was already involved with Giselle. And she's already pregnant. Cahill's face went deathly pale, his mouth hanging open in shock. An affair? How dare he? My daughter is still here. He trembled with rage. Who was it that took on the stain to the family's name and supported that insolent brat's rebellion? Cahill looked grave. And Devon, what did he do? Lydia closed her eyes. Devon accepted the annulment without resistance. He even tried to register Giselle as our family's adopted daughter. I refused, and then they threatened to lock me up. Cahill let out a cold laugh. Steward, did Devon send anyone here about this? A steward standing by the door bowed nervously. Young master hasn't sent anyone since he went to the capital. Cahill's eyes blazed. Something this serious, and he didn't even think to seek my approval? So while I was bedridden, the only one caring for me was my daughter. Bring Devon to me at once. Lydia gently placed her hand over her father's. Wait, father. She lowered her gaze. I didn't want to tell you because I feared the shock would be too much. Cahill looked appalled. Is there something even worse? Lydia's voice turned icy. Devon already prepared your coffin in advance. Hearing that, Kahol's body convulsed, his blood pressure surging. The steward cried out from the side, "My lord!" Lydia also called anxiously, "Father!" Kahol pressed a hand to his forehead, forcing himself to endure the dizziness. "I must personally send someone to the capital to confirm this. Thank you for telling me." He turned to the steward. "Make sure word of my recovery does not reach the capital." The steward bowed. "Yes, I understand." Lydia touched a finger to her lower lip. Father is obsessed with bloodline. He always insisted the heir had to be his biological son. That was why he had always been lenient with Devon. But this time, he would never let Devon off. The curtain on revenge had already risen. The relationship between Devon and father would surely be damaged. This would be the starting point of my revenge. As though all hardship had been a lie, peaceful days passed at Lord Evans's castle. Lydia and Maria walked through the streets laughing. Maria carried a shopping bag when someone suddenly appeared. "Oh!" He stopped the two women. "Where are you ladies headed?" Lydia answered, "We're going to buy some baby things. I heard there aren't many good shops at the frontier." Byron smiled. "You've adjusted quickly." Maria said cheerfully, "We started a little club." Byron asked curiously, "What kind of club?" "If it sounds fun, I want to join." The two of them gave a thumbs up, their smiles bright. A club for people with absolutely terrible luck with men. Lydia had told them everything about her broken engagement. She explained, "Anyone can join, as long as they swear an oath. An oath never to fall in love again." Aslan watched their retreating figures. Is she really planning never to see anyone again? Wouldn't it be better just to improve her taste in men? Lydia suddenly turned around. Her gaze met Aslan's. "Sir, did you want to say something?" For a moment, Aslan faltered. No. The spy who went to the capital has returned." Lydia was startled. "What?" This was completely new information. Aslan and Lydia walked side by side along the corridor. Aslan said, "I had only heard of that medicine, but I never expected it to work so quickly. Earlier, I saw the Marquis already able to walk. Honestly, I was shocked." Lydia gave him a confident smile. Well. Aslan looked puzzled. "What do you mean, well, miss?" Lydia's smile deepened. "Do you believe me now?" Aslan's gaze settled on her. He stared and said, "If I didn't believe you, I wouldn't have saved your life." Lydia's cheeks flushed red. "But at first, you didn't believe me." A faint, almost imperceptible smile appeared on Aslan's face. Lydia closed her eyes. Her smile was sincere. "Still, thank you," Lydia murmured. "If not for you, I might have starved to death at the Marquis' estate. Thanks to you, everything is proceeding according to plan." Kahol roared. He not only prepared a coffin, he even commissioned a gravestone. "Cancel the adoption immediately. An adoption without the head of the house's approval is utter nonsense." From behind the door, Lydia poked her head out. "Father." Kahol turned and saw Lydia. "Oh, Lydia, heavens. Everything you said was true." He was beside himself with rage. Those ungrateful wretches. He ground his teeth, especially Giselle. "She should never have done this to me. I took in that girl who should have lived as a servant and raised her like a noble, and she dares bite the hand that fed her." The steward chimed in, "Indeed, it was only thanks to my lord that she came within a step of becoming empress. But instead she seduced the young master and coveted the young lady's place." Lydia pursed her lips slightly. Of course the Marquis would be furious. The adoption would be cancelled. But if all the blame fell on Giselle alone, that would be troublesome. She turned to the Marquis. Her smile was bright. "Father, think about it. How could Giselle make a decision like this on her own? Richard must have been involved in the adoption too." Kahol let out a cold laugh. I can't sit by and do nothing anymore. I must go to the capital at once." Lydia quickly tried to stop him. "Wait, please don't strain yourself. Your body might." Kahol cut her off. "You cured me. What could possibly be wrong now?" Kahol placed a hand on Lydia's head. "I'll go myself and set everything right." He looked at Lydia. "You stay here and rest. Come later when things are settled." Lydia smiled and shook her head. "I'd rather go to the frontier." She added piously, "Now that I've become a holy woman, I want to devote myself fully to this calling." A perfect lie. Kahol covered his mouth with one hand, deeply moved. "Heavens, though you are my daughter, you truly are admirable." He thought to himself, why can't Devon learn from such a pure-hearted sister? A glint of satisfaction flashed in Lydia's eyes. Lydia gave a soft laugh. It seemed everything was going exactly as she wanted. Lydia gave a slight nod. Everything is going according to plan. She walked beside Aslan. The moment he reaches the capital, Giselle's adoption will be canceled. Even if Devon and I sign the papers, once the head of the house refuses, it's over. The emperor will try to persuade him, but it won't work. Lydia stopped walking, her tone certain. Because he is an extremely stubborn man. Father helped Richard. because he believed his own daughter, me, would become empress. But he overlooked that unspoken agreement. Richard embraced Giselle and cast Lydia aside, completely shattering the Marquis's expectations. The betrayal and humiliation father is about to feel will be immense. Neither persuasion nor threats will shake him. In father's eyes, Richard is just a green young emperor. No matter what he does, father will handle things as he sees fit. Aslan looked at Lydia. She seemed happy and looked far healthier than she had in the capital. He suddenly asked, "Are you planning to return to the capital as well?" Lydia blinked. Aslan looked away. "I mean, don't you want to stay here?" Lydia's eyes widened at once. Aslan stopped walking, and Lydia stopped too. He turned toward her. "What I mean is," Lydia looked up at him. "Sir, could it be that you're worried I'll spread your secret everywhere? So you want me to stay here, so you can keep an eye on me?" Aslan shook his head in panic. "What? No." Lydia touched her cheek with her fingertips, briefly flustered. "Then do you mean I should stay on a Marquis's lands instead of following you to the frontier? Don't worry. Even if I go with you, I won't be a burden. I never intended to set foot in the Evans residence there." Aslan frowned. "If you're not staying at the frontier estate, then where are you going to live?" Lydia raised one finger. "Sir Cedric said there's also a temple at the frontier. A holy woman naturally belongs at the temple." Aslan's expression darkened. "The temple? The problem is that place has been abandoned for 50 years. He turned and started walking. "Apparently you don't know. It's practically in ruins." Lydia hurried after him. "Only the frame is left, right? I was planning to restore it together with Priest Byron." In disbelief, Aslan pressed a hand to his forehead. Lydia planted her hands on her hips. "Anyway, I promise I won't cause trouble. Just wait and see." With that, she turned and strode away. Aslan watched her back and let out a long sigh. She had never been to the frontier. She had no idea how cold or dangerous it was there. The next day, the Marquis set out for the capital, and we also prepared to leave for the frontier. A knight called out loudly, "What should we do with the supplies from the Marquis's estate?" "Load them onto that carriage over there." Lydia was just about to take hold of a horse when a hand pressed down on the reins. Aslan's voice sounded. "Lydia." Aslan stood in front of her. "This time, please ride in the carriage. The road to the frontier is dangerous." Lydia tilted her head. "Dangerous?" A faint smile lifted her lips. "All right." The carriage began to jolt. Lydia sat inside, looking out the window. He said it was dangerous, but nothing seemed to be happening, though the road was a bit rough. Lydia rested her chin on one hand, swaying with the carriage, bored out of her mind. "Monsters appear at the frontier." He probably only said that as a warning. The 3 villages at the edge of the Marquis's territory were collectively called the frontier. The land was barren, the nights long, and monsters frequently appeared. For generations, the vassal house of the Marquis Evans, the Atis family, had protected the frontier in exchange for exemption from taxes and military service. As the carriage rocked, Lydia thought it over. "I see. So Sir Aslan is protecting the frontier now." She gave a small laugh. "But we haven't even reached the frontier yet. Will monsters really appear this soon?" She yawned. Suddenly the carriage lurched violently, and Lydia was thrown forward. A scream came from outside. "Monster!" A huge red, centipede-like beast burst from the earth, jaws gaping wide. One of the knights drew his sword and roared. Everyone prepared to attack. Lydia was startled. "Speak of the devil, and it appears." The carriage shook violently. Lydia fell hard to the floor with a groan. "Nera!" Lydia cried out as Nera struggled to brace herself in pain. The carriage window shattered violently, and Lydia's arm was cut. The knights shouted, "Don't let the monster get near the people. Lure it over here." In the distance, Maria waved her hand. "Nera, Lydia, come over here quickly." Maria shouted in terror, "Run." Lydia helped the injured Nera to her feet. "Maria, how are you?" Her face was full of confusion. Lydia turned her head and froze. Her legs trembled uncontrollably. "What do I do?" "My legs won't move." The monster's huge claw tore through the air and lunged straight at her. "Am I going to die here?" Lydia closed her eyes. A dark shadow flashed past. Someone yanked her away hard. Aslan stood in front of her, his whole body covered in blood. "Lydia, are you all right?" Still shaken to the core, Lydia cried out, "Sir Aslan." Aslan drew his sword. "I'll finish this quickly. Stay there until it's over." Lydia stared at Aslan. "I had heard he was the Empire's finest sword, but seeing it with my own eyes now, I truly understand." Aslan moved through the swarm of monsters like a phantom. Sword light flashed, flesh and blood flew. "Now I understand why Devon and Richard wanted him so badly." The remains of the monsters lay scattered all over the ground. The battle was over. Maria ran toward Lydia. Are you two all right? Good heavens, that was terrifying. Lydia smiled and explained to Maria, Maria, this isn't my blood. It's monster blood that splashed on me. Maria gently touched Lydia's cheek. I'm just glad you're all right, but that's a problem too. Once things are settled here, let's quickly wash up and change clothes. Lydia nodded. All right. 1 hour later, by the stream, Lydia stretched. So refreshing. I'm finally clean all over. Maria held the clothes they had changed out of. It's lucky there's a stream nearby. Since we're here, should we wash these two? Lydia suggested. Then let's wash them here as well. She suddenly turned around, then froze at what she saw. Maria covered her mouth too. Oh my. Several knights were washing themselves in the stream with their shirts off, bare upper bodies glistening as water splashed everywhere. The knights were also covered in blood, so they definitely needed to wash. Lydia and Maria walked closer holding the clothes and waved to the knights. We'll just wash clothes over here. Don't mind us. Go right ahead. The knights nodded. Thank you. Lydia whispered to Maria, Maria, maybe we should wait a bit before washing. They haven't stripped all the way. Why not? Maria wore a mischievous grin. And they all have such great bodies. What's wrong with appreciating them a little? Lydia reached out and lightly smacked Maria on the head. Maria, don't stare. Then Lydia hurriedly added, that's far too shallow. Her cheeks turned pink. Aslan brushed back his wet black hair and droplets slid down his firm abs. Lydia covered Maria's mouth, but her own gaze couldn't look away. I thought Sir Aslan was the lean type. I didn't expect his muscles to be so. Maria whispered in her ear, Miss Holy Woman, you think he looks pretty good too, don't you? Lydia jolted. What am I thinking? Get a grip. Maria looked at Lydia's flushed face. Lydia bit her nail. Maria, that kind of joke is too much for a holy woman. Maria kept teasing. The goddess would allow us to admire them. It's not like we're peeking. They're right in front of us. What can we do? Lydia hesitated. Is that so? Maria answered firmly. Of course. Then she leaned close and whispered, Miss, whose body do you think looks the best? Lydia looked blank. They thought they were whispering, but in reality, every knight by the stream could hear them. More accurately, they were all straining their ears to listen. 4 unmarried knights. This was a rare chance to have their physiques acknowledged by ladies. Fighting spirit ignited in the knights' eyes. They absolutely could not miss this opportunity. The knights began flexing their muscles. Take a good look, Miss Holy Woman. Behold our magnificent muscles. Aslan stood off to one side alone, watching all this expressionlessly. They're all missing the point. Lydia fell into thought. This is hard. With complete seriousness, Lydia announced, I think. Her heart pounded hard. All the knights held their breath. Lydia's cheeks were faintly red. She touched her cheek lightly, her gaze flickering. In my opinion, Sir Cedric has the most perfect build. Maria laughed in agreement. I choose Sir Cedric too. Lydia turned to her in shock. Maria, I knew it would be unanimous. Several men in the water shook in disbelief. Cedric clenched his fist and shouted, yes. He sighed in satisfaction. This feels amazing. Cedric looked toward the women in the distance. So practical muscles really are what matter most. He turned to his companions and said, you idiots don't understand women at all. If you're jealous, just say so. You bunch of fools. Aslan stood in the water, moonlight outlining the warning lines of his muscles. He lowered his eyes. So they like that kind of physique? What exactly do they like about it? Just because it's broad and thick? Aslan tugged at his soaked shirt hem. No, if that's their preference, then why was she staring at my body earlier? He remembered Lydia's intent gaze. She looked for so long. I thought she would choose me. Aslan stood beneath the waterfall, the current washing over him. The Emperor doesn't have that kind of body. So preference and love are two different things. The corner of Aslan's mouth tilted slightly. What goes beyond preference? That must be true love. Then he suddenly stiffened. Wait, what exactly am I brooding over? Aslan walked into the room. He greeted Nera, who was lying on the bed. Nanny, how are you feeling? Nera smiled and sat up. I was only frightened. I'm not seriously hurt. If anything, I'm sorry for delaying the journey because of me. Aslan sat at the bedside. No, the carriage needs repairs, so we decided to camp here for today. Nera nodded in understanding. Then she clasped her hands together. By the way, is Miss Lydia all right? You were protecting me the whole time, so I couldn't see clearly. Her eyes were full of concern, but she faced that monster head on. She must have been terribly frightened. Aslan fell silent for a moment, Lydia's image surfacing in his mind. Nera recalled the scene. Even in a moment like that, she used her whole body to shield me. In that memory, Lydia clung tightly to Nera. I am truly grateful. But Aslan sat at the bedside, his figure looking oddly lonely in the dim light. He lowered his head and murmured, "Yes." Lydia had smiled with her eyes closed. Come to think of it, what she felt for him was only gratitude. Nera nodded with relief. "Exactly. So, young master, please take good care of Miss." Aslan walked out of the tent. I should use this chance to persuade her to give up on the temple and move into the frontier estate. His steps were firm. He had seen the danger of monsters with his own eyes. As long as I explain the conditions of the frontier in detail, she won't be stubborn anymore. The estate has a permanent night order station there, so it's safe. There are attendants to look after her too. It may not compare to the Marquis's residence, but it's far better than a ruined temple. He was still thinking when Cedric said to Lydia. Aslan's thoughts were interrupted. Lydia widened her eyes in disbelief. What did you just say?" Cedric scratched his head. "Miss said it would be best if you shared a tent with the commander." Lydia asked why. Cedric explained, "The carriage is being repaired. Sleeping outside is dangerous, and it's not appropriate for you to share a tent with the knights. Besides, staying beside the commander is the safest." Lydia closed her eyes. Even so, from an outsider's perspective, isn't it strange for an unmarried man and woman to share a tent? Cedric tested the waters. Are you worried the commander might make a move on you?" Lydia waved her hand decisively. "Oh no. That part doesn't worry me. Come to think of it, Sir Aslan is very conservative. He would never do anything improper." Cedric chuckled and lowered his voice. "I don't know what you think, miss, but our commander isn't conservative. He's just dense." Aslan's voice came from behind him. "Cedric, you're talking a lot of nonsense." Cedric jumped. "Whoa, you startled me." Lydia asked curiously, "Sir, are you dense?" Aslan looped an arm around Cedric's neck from behind. "I'm not." Lydia gave a thoughtful hum. Aslan let go and sighed weakly. "Being dense means not knowing how to deal with women. I avoid romance deliberately. That's completely different." Lydia looked at him. "Oh, is that so?" Aslan remained expressionless. "You don't seem inclined to believe me." Lydia laughed. "No, I believe you. I completely believe you. But this is funny. Now that you've put it that way, I mind sharing a tent with you even less." Aslan stood there in silence while Lydia laughed so hard she bent over. Aslan muttered, "You don't believe me at all. I'll sleep outside. The bed is yours." Lydia turned back with a smile. "Oh, sir, this dense little blockhead of yours is rather gentlemanly." Aslan countered, "Didn't you just say you believed me?" Lydia paused. She turned back and leaned in curiously. "You're so popular. Why do you deliberately avoid romance? Is it because of some secret?" Aslan said nothing. His gaze darkened. "That wasn't entirely wrong. If I had a lover, I might accidentally reveal the secret. But how innocent would that person be, suddenly forced to bear such a heavy secret? What kind of life would that be? Under these circumstances, taking on another person to protect would be a luxury." Lydia suddenly spoke. "He has a body that cannot fulfill a man's role." Lydia thought of her mother, a frail and often ill woman, yet one who loved only Devon with absolute devotion. Even until death, all she worried about was Devon. "Do you understand? You must have 2 sons and give one to your brother. Devon cannot father children. Let that promise remain a secret between us." Lydia's eyes turned cold. "In my previous life, I loved Mother deeply, so I kept that secret perfectly. But now I have no intention of guarding it anymore. They say it happened because he took the wrong medicine when he was young." Aslan pressed a finger to his chin, deep in thought. "That's a rather delicate secret. If it's only a matter of adopting an heir, it isn't such a fatal flaw." Lydia turned away. "Other people might think so, but my father absolutely wants my bloodline to inherit the family." A question mark practically appeared over Aslan's head. "Wouldn't that interfere with your plan?" "The Marquis's only son is that man. I doubt he would be discarded so easily." Lydia gave a light laugh. "You're right. But of course I have a way around that too." Aslan folded his arms. His expression was puzzled. Lydia blinked playfully. "Even if you ask, I won't tell you. That is a real secret. If Aslan learned this as well, he might go directly to negotiate with Devon." It wasn't that she didn't trust him, but the fewer variables, the better. Aslan loosened his tie. "I'm not all that curious anyway." Aslan turned to Lydia. "More importantly, do you really intend to stay at the temple?" Lydia's gaze shifted. In the frontier region, monsters often come down into the villages. There are creatures even more vicious and larger than the one you saw today. Ordinary people can't even move when they encounter them. Lydia lifted her eyes to meet his. "Do monsters appear in the villages that often?" Aslan answered, "At the very least, there's a monster disturbance once a month." Lydia fell into thought. Now she understood. Lydia sat on the bed while Aslan stood nearby. "So come back to the Evans estate instead." Then I just need to learn swordsmanship. Aslan froze. What? Lydia covered her mouth, realizing she had spoken too fast. I said I want to learn swordsmanship. Hearing all this made me realize I need a way to protect myself. Aslan was momentarily speechless. Lydia raised a thumbs up and smiled brightly. I told you before that I wouldn't cause you trouble. Aslan put a hand to his forehead and sighed deeply. What an impossible woman to persuade. Stop talking nonsense and go to sleep. We leave early tomorrow. Lydia sat on the bed, looking shocked. Good night? How could she possibly fall asleep that easily? But she soon drifted off. Lydia turned over on the bed, fast asleep. Aslan sat in the chair by the bedside, his fists clenched tight. He sat there wiping down his rifle, lost in thought. She must be exhausted. Aslan thought back over everything Lydia had been through. First, she poisoned herself, then climbed over the balcony to escape the Marquis's residence, then infiltrated the labor camp, and today, she was attacked by a monster. Aslan's movement stilled. He looked toward the bed. Lydia. In her sleep, Lydia turned and murmured. Aslan got up and moved closer. Lydia's brows were tightly knit, and a whimper escaped her. Aslan bent over to look at her. Is she having a nightmare? A tear slid from the corner of Lydia's eye. Lydia collapsed onto the freezing stone floor. Through the prison bars, Richard showed a twisted smile. Don't worry, Lydia. I won't kill you. Lydia lifted her tear-stained face, her eyes full of terror. Attempting to murder the future empress and the imperial child in her womb is a monstrous crime. For the sake of our former engagement, as emperor, I'll at least spare your life. Lydia reached out, grasping futilely toward the bars. Richard's eyes were cold. This is where things end between us. From now on, live as best you can. Lydia, sparing your life this time is the last mercy I will ever show you. Richard turned and walked away. The prison door slammed shut with a merciless crash. Lydia screamed in terror. Don't go. I was wrong. She cried out in despair. Stay a little longer. I'm so scared, Richard. Lydia stood to the side, watching coldly, looking at the Lydia of the past curled into a ball on the floor. There was not a ripple in her gaze. Richard's figure disappeared into the darkness. He never looked back, even once. Lydia clenched her fists as she recalled Richard's cruelty. What a terrifying man. Was it really so hard to look back just once? Lydia's eyes sharpened. Don't worry, Richard. I won't kill you either. I'll make sure you never know a single peaceful day. Aslan bent down and heard an indistinct whisper. Richard, Lydia called out in her sleep. Don't go. Aslan looked at her. She hates him. Aslan slowly straightened. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating his back. No matter how much she hated Richard, it seemed some lingering affection still remained in her heart. But what is this? This strange discomfort. Aslan lowered his head and looked at his own hand. Her feelings toward the Emperor have nothing to do with me. So why is it that, whether in the valley or now, whenever I'm near Lydia, these uncontrollable emotions rise up? Under the clear sky, a grand residence stood ahead. Devon sprang up in alarm. Father is coming. A steward reported to Devon. Yes, the checkpoint informed us. He passed through the city walls earlier. Devon asked urgently. Has he recovered from white frost disease? The steward stammered. Well, Devon waved his hand. Forget it. Move the coffin first. I'll go greet Father. The carriage stopped before the residence. The steward helped Cahill down. Father, heavens. What is this? Devon spread his arms and rushed toward him with a broad smile. You've recovered completely? I can hardly believe it's seeing it with my own eyes. Father. Cahill looked at Devon, his expression complicated. Devon stood on the steps. Yes, Cahill demanded. Do you really intend to register Giselle into our family? Devon stood with his back to him, hands clasped behind him, saying nothing. A faint curve tugged at the corner of his mouth. Then Devon lifted his eyes and showed a gentle smile. Father, let's not discuss this here. Please come inside. He gently supported Cahill by the arm. I'm worried you might faint again. The door opened with a creak. Cahill entered with the steward supporting him, while Devon stood by waiting quietly. A thin sheen of cold sweat broke across his temple. Good thing the coffin has already been moved. It will be troublesome if he found it. Devon turned to the steward. Father doesn't look well. Is he really all right? The steward replied. He's merely fatigued from the journey. His illness has already been cured. There's no need. Cahill suddenly cut in. More importantly, Devon, answer me honestly. Do you truly intend to register Giselle into the family? Devin lowered his eyes. Yes, father. Kyle was furious. Have you no pride? Your sister's place was taken, and yet you stand with the one who stole it from her. Devin spread his hands. His majesty was adamant. There was nothing I could do. Besides, if Lydia married a man who no longer loves her, she would only suffer. Cahill clenched his fist. So, you agreed to the annulment for Lydia's sake? Is that what you're saying? Devin's smile carried a trace of strain, and sweat slid from his temple. That's right, but the Emperor also made me a promise. Kyle's brow twitched. A promise? Devin declared proudly. I mean, he promised to bestow on you the title of Duke. Father. Kyle suddenly raised his hand and slapped Devin hard across the face. Devin staggered from the blow. What's there to be angry about? Kyle lifted a foot. You idiot. You ambition-blinded fool. You're going to drag our entire family into ruin. 2 days later, at the frontier, Lydia looked around. The crowd bustled around her, and she wore a smile. This was the beginning of her new life. A beginning without betrayal. But why is the village in such disrepair? I thought the fighting during the coup never reached the frontier. Lydia looked over the surrounding ruins. The buildings themselves were still intact. She called out to one of the knights. Sir Cedric? Cedric turned around. During the rebellion, half our knights deserted, so we couldn't defend against the monsters effectively. A bitter look crossed his face. But the commander is back now. We should be able to restore order. Lydia nodded thoughtfully, then gave a light laugh. It's obvious. Sir Aslan is indispensable to the frontier. Cedric answered, in a way, yes. A villager ran up excitedly and tightly embraced one of the knights. Several other men gathered around too, their faces full of joy at the reunion. Lydia stood quietly with her luggage, watching the scene. So they recognized them. They must be old retainers of the Adis family. Lydia klippte hier bei Tightly. That's wonderful. No matter what happens from now on, as long as Sir Aslan is here, the people here will be safe. She watched him surrounded by his men, her pink hair fluttering in the wind. Lydia smiled in relief. At last, I've managed to accomplish one thing in my life. She turned to Cedric. Where is the temple? Cedric looked bewildered. You really plan to live in the temple? Lydia cleared her throat. Of course. I'm a holy woman. Cedric called out. Wait a moment. Randall, take this lady to the temple. Randall turned to face Lydia. Lydia's eyes widened. Why am of all people? This is awkward. Randall gestured. This way. He led Lydia ahead through dappled forest light. Lydia looked at the building before her. A grand temple, yet her heart sank. What? No, this is basically a storage shed. I heard it was run down, but I never imagined. Lydia pushed at the door. It didn't budge. It was locked. Looks like nobody has used it in a very long time. Randall walked over. Move. He kicked the doors open in one brutal strike. Wood splinters flew, and the doors crashed down. Lydia stared in shock. Randall explained. The doors open. He actually kicked open the temple door. Lydia forced a smile. Thank you, Sir Randall. Randall looked away. Then, he turned and strode off. Lydia stood there holding her luggage, wearing a baffled expression. 1 week later, Aslan's office. Aslan sat behind his desk reviewing documents. There are strangers wandering around. Cedric stood before the desk and reported. They claim to be wandering mercenaries, but they seem to be the Emperor's men. They've been asking about you. Aslan set down the documents. Ignore them for the time being. His gaze sharpened. No matter how much they dig, they won't find anything. More importantly, we don't have time for them right now. Aslan buried his hands in a mountain of documents. For an entire week, he had not stepped out of the office once. He lowered his eyes, grave. Have they approached the temple? You know what will happen if anything happens to Lydia? Cedric replied. There's been no report yet, but I'll send Randall to check later. Aslan looked puzzled. Randall? Aren't he and Lydia on bad terms? Cedric dismissed it lightly. That was a long time ago. They get along fine now. Randall's even helping with repairs. Aslan's eyes turned suddenly cold. He goes in and out of the temple often, a man with no faith. Aslan abruptly stood, his palms slamming onto the desk so fast it stirred the air. Cedric jumped. Commander? Aslan rose from the office. I'll stop by the temple on the way. Lydia stood before the half-restored temple. Sir Aslan, Lydia asked, are you here to see Priest Byron? He isn't here right now. Aslan's gaze swept over her. No, I just came to take a look. Lydia smiled. The temple looks much better now. Everyone's been working hard to repair it lately. A lot of people have come to help. Lydia sounded excited, especially Sir Randall. Hammering, sawing wood, cleaning. There's almost nothing he can't do. Aslan replied blankly. Yes, I heard. Lydia paused. He heard, so he's pretending not to know? In her memory, Sir Randall had clearly. Lydia thanked Randall. Thanks to you, sir, we'll be able to finish much faster. Randall's cheeks turned faintly red, and he scratched the back of his neck. It's nothing, he muttered under his breath. Commander Aslan told me to do it. That's what he said. Lydia rested a hand on her chin. Maybe he was just shy and didn't want credit. Sir Cedric was right. He really is a simple person. Aslan noticed the way she was looking at him. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Lydia waved her hands in a fluster. Nothing. Since we happen to meet, may I ask you a favor? Lydia clasped her hands before her chest, her eyes shining with anticipation. I heard there's a patch of lily of the valley in the forest. It's the symbolic flower of the goddess. I want to dig some up and plant them in the temple courtyard. Would that be all right? Aslan tilted his head slightly, a trace of surprise in his eyes. That's the favor you wanted to ask? He looked away again, his expression turning serious. It's dangerous to go into the forest alone. If you insist on going, I'll accompany you. Aslan turned and started forward. Lydia hurried after him. You must be very busy. You don't need to come with me. I can go later with Priest Byron. Aslan did not stop walking. Absolutely not. If you say that now, you'll definitely sneak off by yourself later. Lydia was startled. How'd he know? Aslan suddenly held out his hand. The stones here are slippery. Please watch your step. Lydia stared at him blankly, letting him take her hand and lead her forward. Sunlight filtered through the woods, falling over Aslan and Lydia. Their hands were clasped tightly together. Aslan stopped. We're here. Lydia looked up. Before her spread a sea of pure white lily of the valley blossoms. Delight shone in her eyes. Wow. Lydia skipped into the flowers. So many. Then she suddenly froze. Aslan turned back in confusion. Lydia had gone pale, her pupils shrinking with fear. Her voice shook. Sir Aslan, there's a monster over there. Aslan looked in the direction she pointed. A monster? He saw a huge pink creature and a smaller one beside it. Aslan's expression turned odd. That's not a monster. It's a winter rabbit. Lydia stared. A winter rabbit? Wait, didn't you say before that I looked like a winter rabbit? Aslan answered calmly. Yes. Lydia looked incredulous. Impossible. How does that thing look anything like me? In your eyes, do I look like a monster? Aslan explained. Winter rabbits only grow that thick fur in winter. It's spring now, so no. In winter you really do look like one. Lydia puffed up angrily. Liar. Aslan withdrew his gaze. Anyway, it isn't a monster, so there's no need to worry. Lydia crossed her arms and turned her head away. Aslan stepped forward. All right, I almost forgot what we came here for. Lydia, have any people claiming to be mercenaries come to see you? Lydia looked up. How did you know? They came not long ago. Aslan said flatly. They're Imperial scouts sent by the Emperor. I'll drive them away as soon as possible, but just in case, you still need to be careful. Lydia turned to look at Aslan. How are you going to drive them away? If you handle it poorly, they'll suspect you're hiding something at the frontier. Then Richard may openly send more people. If anyone who remembers the retainers of Duke Byron's house appears, it'll become troublesome. It would be better if they left on their own. Aslan looked at her, a searching light in his eyes. And how do you make them leave on their own? Lydia's lips curved upward. That depends on what I do. Lydia touched her lower lip with a finger and looked at Aslan thoughtfully. For example, if some rumors spread about you and me. Aslan's cheeks turned faintly red. He stared at her in surprise. What? Lydia's face flushed. She quickly waved her hands. Of course, it can't be too excessive or it'll backfire. They only need to think they have no interest in me and that I'm the one constantly clinging to you. They'll probably rush back to report that right away, won't they? Aslan stood there silently, without saying a word. Lydia looked pleased with herself, just like what happened with Richard. Richard once said, I'm best at making men lose interest in me. Once he hears the rumor, he'll probably pity you and stop paying attention to the frontier. Aslan folded his arms across his chest, his brows furrowed. Or he might summon you back to the capital to suppress the rumor. Lydia confidently raised one finger. He won't. If he did that, people would think he still has lingering feelings for his abandoned fiancée. Richard seized the throne through a coup. His position still isn't stable. He broke off our engagement the moment he was crowned, and that already damaged his image. After all, during the coup, I was one of his most loyal supporters. There's a limit to how ungrateful he can appear. Right now, he desperately needs public support, and he absolutely won't want to get tangled in scandalous rumors, whether about a marquis's daughter or a duke's daughter. Lydia looked at Aslan with confidence. I think it's a pretty good plan. What do you think? Aslan's gaze darkened. He bent down and held out his hand. All right. Lydia stared at Aslan. This plan, It must remain a secret between the two of us. And if we're going to do this, we have to do it thoroughly. Lydia laughed. Fine, be prepared. I'll keep visiting your estate until I wear down your doorstep. The corners of Aslan's lips curled up. If you had moved into the estate from the beginning, this plan would have been much easier to carry out. Lydia beamed. There you go again. Tilting her head as she looked at Aslan, she asked, why are you in such a hurry to get me to move into your estate? If anyone overheard you, they'd think you were courting me. Aslan jolted in surprise. Isn't that so? Lydia said with a smile, waving her little shovel. Stop pretending. I know you're hopelessly innocent. Aslan's face flushed red. Lydia pointed into the distance. Oh, it's just that I saw a lot of flowers over there. He abruptly stood up and rushed deep into the flower field. Lydia turned and ran off. His figure vanished into the woods. Only his back was left in sight. Aslan stared at that sea of flowers, at the place where she had disappeared. The emperor was actually afraid of a woman like that. Aslan knelt alone in the field of flowers, looking down at the pure white blanket covering the ground. He wondered what it was about someone like him that could make others feel so weary and disheartened. He raised a hand and brushed the corner of his eye. Following in his footsteps would only make her seem even more pitiable. He could not refuse. He did not want to refuse either, because if he was going to do this, then he had to do it thoroughly. He hadn't needed to say those words out loud. There had clearly been other ways to deal with those scouts. But he did not want to refuse. Because I don't mind being with you like this. The setting sun cast a golden rim over the temple. Lydia stood at the entrance, holding a bouquet of bellflowers. Thank you for escorting me back to the temple, sir. She stepped closer to Aslan. But you know, don't you? You can't keep being this kind anymore. It's my turn to pursue you now. Aslan's cheeks turned crimson. He averted his gaze. Lydia extended her palm. Be firm. This isn't courtship. It's close surveillance. Otherwise, it'll ruin our plan. For the sake of our shared goal, please cooperate. Aslan gave a slight nod. I'll try. Lydia suddenly remembered something. Oh, right. Thank you for sending Sir Randall over. Aslan looked confused. Randall? Lydia smiled and explained. Yes. Didn't you send him to help clean the temple? I just heard about it. Aslan thought. So that brat Randall acted on his own and used me as an excuse. Lydia smiled brightly. I know you're shy and want to hide it, but I still have to thank you. I should clear things up, tell her it wasn't me, that Randall was lying. However, I don't want to say it. Aslan raised a hand to cover his mouth. Very well, then I'll take my leave now. Aslan walked alone through the courtyard. It was already late. I only told Cedric I was going to the temple. The afterglow lit Aslan's profile. He recalled the promise he had made with Lydia, to pretend to push Lydia away. Lydia sat on the grass, lightly stroking her own hair. Pretend to like Sir Aslan. She softly hummed a tune. Can I really succeed? The day of my coming-of-age ball was the anniversary of my mother's death. In the ballroom, the guests chatted and laughed. Lydia stood alone in a corner, her hands clenched tightly in her skirt. Lydia turned and ran out of the hall. She only wanted to escape. No, her mind was full of her mother's image. She couldn't smile. Footsteps echoed through the silent courtyard. Richard stood beneath the moonlight. Lydia looked up, forcing a smile onto her face. Richard asked, why are you here? Her tears burst forth instantly. Lydia trembled. Miss Lydia, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I, too, often miss my late mother. Richard's gaze was calm and gentle. He looked at Lydia. Richard gently wiped the corner of Lydia's eye with a handkerchief. His voice was warm. If you want to cry, then cry. I understand that feeling. Lydia's heart gave a sudden leap. Was it that very moment? The moment my heart was drawn to Richard? From that day on, Lydia visited the third prince's palace often. Their relationship spread among the servants. Then came the engagement, betrayal, imprisonment, rebirth. Lydia shuddered all over. She shook her head and tossed Richard's portrait aside. That was no pleasant memory. Lydia clenched her fist. Pull yourself together. This time, I'll do it differently. I'll start with a public declaration of affection. Tomorrow I act. I'll make sure everyone knows. The streets were crowded and bustling. Lydia threaded her way through the crowd, her steps light. Lydia stopped. What is it? Aslan's voice came from behind her. This. Aslan let out a sigh, brows knitted tightly. We've been cheated again in Count Mondes territory. Aslan pointed at the piled-up grain sacks. They're selling grain worth 1 gold coin for 10. Lydia blurted out, what? Then we have to go confront them at once. The leopard beast man bit his lip. It's hard to keep transporting grain into the borderlands. Monsters are very sensitive to the smell of food, and the Count's territory lies across the river, so the only place we can buy food is in the Count's domain. Even if we want to buy seeds and grow it ourselves, the merchants won't sell them. They're hard to get. Lydia's eyes turned cold. They know you can't fight back, so they're taking advantage of you. Does the Count know about this? The leopard beastman replied, I guess not. The Count stays in the capital year-round, but the steward managing the territory definitely knows. Lydia rested her chin on her hand, eyes sharp. Count Mond is in the capital. I've never seen him at any gathering. He probably isn't anyone especially powerful. His family's influence is far below that of a marquis. A cold smile curled on Lydia's lips. Then it's time. No longer as a holy woman, but as the daughter of Marquis Evans. Time for my long-awaited return. Lydia turned to face everyone, spreading her arms with a radiant smile. Who wants to come with me to Count Mond's territory and make a scene? A few days later, a carriage jolted along a forest path. Inside, Lydia sat gracefully, a faint smile on her lips. Aslan sat with his hands folded, expressionless. I didn't expect the Marquis's daughter to come along as well. If something happened to you in a foreign land, the Marquis would be furious. That would be troublesome. Lydia waved with a smile. I'm not alone. Aren't the other knights coming too? Aslan closed his eyes. No matter what, I'll stay with you. He's the safest one. Security in the Count's territory isn't very good. Merchant ships come and go often, and mercenaries and smugglers run rampant. Be careful once we arrive. Lydia smiled. Don't worry. I won't wander around by myself. I heard Sir Randall wanted to come too, but unfortunately it didn't work out. Aslan leaned against the carriage wall, his arms crossed over his chest. Aslan opened his eyes, a flicker of sharpness passing through them. The harbor was noisy and lively. Lydia and the others got out of the carriage. Several young men excitedly crowded around them. Their eyes sparkled. Countless hands shot up from the crowd. A voice shouted, I want to go too. Lady Priestess. Even Randall quietly raised his hand. Lydia turned back and saw an excited face beside her. My, everyone's so enthusiastic. Aslan spoke coldly. If everyone leaves, there'll be trouble at the border. Only a few are going. He raised a hand and pointed at the crowd. Cedric and those three over there. You four are coming with me. Aslan turned and walked away. There was no need for him to single out names like that, throwing a petty fit at his own subordinates. Could Randall have noticed? Aslan spun around abruptly, looking tense. Notice what? Lydia blinked. Oh, right. Where's the list I asked for? Aslan let out a breath of relief. Ah, I've prepared it. He handed over a rolled parchment. Lydia took it. Thank you. Excitedly, she unrolled the scroll. It unfurled all the way in her hands, drooping to the floor. It was astonishingly long. She stared at the list in a daze. There's quite a lot to buy. Normally, it wouldn't be this much, but while I was unconscious, we took heavy losses driving back the monsters. Lydia smiled. That's fine. We have plenty of funds. She pulled out a heavy pouch from beneath her skirt. Look, Tajda. Diamonds. Aslan's pupils widened. Lydia laughed smugly. It's too early to be surprised. There's more. What's this? Aslan was completely stunned. Tajda. Lydia pulled another garment from the luggage case and burst into laughter. This is my father's private stash hidden in the Marquis's residence. I sewed it in here and secretly brought it out. I told him it was expensive underwear. In case this isn't enough, I should have taken the rest out too. Aslan covered his face with one hand, the tips of his ears reddening. Are you tired? Lydia said, a little. Maybe because I stayed up late unpicking the seams yesterday. Aslan rubbed his temples, his voice hoarse. Give it to me. I'll do it. Lydia hesitated. What? But Aslan said it's fine. Go to sleep. Stirring up trouble in the Count's territory will take energy. Lydia smiled. Then I'll nap for a bit. Thank you. Counting this as thanks. If you secretly pocket one or two, I won't say anything. Aslan said, I won't take any. The carriage rocked gently. Lydia leaned against the carriage wall and fell asleep. Aslan picked up the diamond stuff garment, his fingertips brushing the threads. Quietly, he began to take it apart. He covered his face, his fingers trembling slightly. What on earth am I doing? Lydia parted her lips slightly as her eyes reflected the distant castle. Wow! Aslan stood beside her, his gaze calm. Sunlight poured over the rooftops of Mon County. Rows of neatly built structures stretched to the end of sight. Lydia looked all around. There was a shopping street, restaurants, even farmland. Only a river separated it from the frontier, yet the standard of living was worlds apart. Lydia's thoughts churned. The territory may be small, but it's a treasure. By rights, Count Mon should be widely known. Why have I never heard of him? How strange. But that doesn't matter right now. Lydia's lips lifted, her eyes gleaming. Marin, first to the boutique. Lydia's eyes were resolute. For the next week, I'll turn back into that infamous Marquis's daughter, a willful, stubborn, spoiled girl. The plan is this. Lydia put on sunglasses and spent money wildly, spreading rumors that I'm still being funded by the Marquis's house. She would pretend to be a clueless, pampered young lady and deliberately let people overcharge her. Once news of my arrival reaches the steward, Lydia poked her head out from behind the door, her face full of anger. I'll make a huge scene and drag that man out. A sly smile appeared on Lydia's lips. With Sir Aslan following me, it'll be even easier. I'll order him around like a bodyguard and drag him everywhere. It'll make me look childish beyond belief, and at the same time, I can spread rumors that I'm infatuated with him. To do that, first I need... Aaron stood on the street corner, waving at them. Priestess, this is the best boutique in the whole county. Of course, clothing. Spoiled young lady mode activated. Lydia crossed her arms. Really? Then let's go in. A foot in blue-green heels stopped at the doorway. Aslan suddenly grabbed Lydia. She looked back at him in puzzlement. Lydia lowered her voice. Sir, from now on, please act as though you were dragged here against your will. Aslan froze. What? Lydia leaned close to Aslan and whispered. You need to subtly show that. You're annoyed by everything I do. Aslan looked utterly baffled. Lydia remained expressionless and sighed. If that's too hard, then just keep a blank face, all right? The bell above the door rang. A woman with short brown hair came forward with a bright smile. Welcome. But the moment she saw Aslan, she froze. A priest. The shopkeeper raised a hand awkwardly in front of herself. Sorry, but we don't make priest robes. Aslan reminded her quietly. This is the daughter of Marquis Evans. The woman's smile stiffened and her whole body jolted. She reacted at once. Of course, I've heard the rumors. The Marquis's daughter Lydia became a priestess and went to the frontier. Cold sweat broke out on her brow. But why have you suddenly come to the county? Lydia spoke with disdain. So you don't make robes for priests? The shopkeeper hurriedly waved her hands. And no, not at all. She immediately put on a flattering smile. Since a priestess has personally graced us with her presence, of course we would be delighted to make one for you. She guided Lydia to a seat. Her manner was humble. Lydia sat upright, looking dissatisfied. The central temple gave me one robe. What exactly do they take me for? Lydia's tone was airy. I should have at least 3, shouldn't I? Everyone says this is the finest boutique here. Yes, the shopkeeper chimed in. The countess and the young lady also have their dresses made here. Then let's start by choosing the fabric. Lydia's fingers brushed over several bolts of cloth as 3 female clerks respectfully displayed them. Lydia fell into thought. She pointed at a bolt of white fabric. Isn't that material for wedding dresses? Put it away. She pointed at another piece. Too yellow. Then at another. This one won't do either. Lydia looked displeased as she watched the fabrics. In the end, she chose only one. A cloth with a green pattern. This one is acceptable. The shopkeeper immediately bustled over, smiling all over her face. Oh my, your eye is excellent, miss. This is imported fabric, the most expensive one we have out. If we had a little lace to the sleeves, it would look adorable. What do you think? And perhaps some scallop trim around the collar. Lydia turned her face aside. Would that really be all right? I'm a priest, after all. If I dress too extravagantly, people will criticize me. The shopkeeper coaxed her eagerly. Just a tiny bit around the edges. No one will notice. Lydia pondered for a moment. Really, a glint flashed in her eyes. Then embroider pearls around the collar, too. It'll look neat. The shopkeeper clasped her hands together, smiling brightly. Oh my, your taste is truly extraordinary. I hadn't even thought that far. The 2 female clerks immediately gathered around to take Lydia's measurements. I think it'll be very delicate, Lydia said calmly. 1 week should be enough, right? The shopkeeper nodded at once. Of course. We'll have it ready as quickly as possible. Then, shifting her tone, the shopkeeper asked, by the way, didn't you bring a maid? Usually a personal maid handles payment. Lydia's eyes turned cold. A maid? She gave a mocking laugh. I'm a priest. What priest brings a maid? The shopkeeper hurriedly bowed. What I need a maid for? She really does look like an ignorant girl forced into becoming a priest. Honestly, what proper priest embroiders pearls onto a robe? Aslan gave a strained smile. She's amazing. Lydia turned to Aslan. What is it? Lydia pointed at him. Sir Aslan. Aslan stood motionless. Is she asking me to pay? He took out a diamond and handed it to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper's eyes nearly popped out. A diamond? To buy 3 priest robes. Lydia replied flatly. What? Is there a problem? Lydia's lips lifted in a smug smile. After walking too much, her whole body felt limp. Fine. Lydia wandered along the street, so tired that even walking felt bothersome. She glanced sidelong at the people around her. Maybe it's time for the next step of the plan. There are plenty of people around. After all, Lydia suddenly stopped. Oh dear. Aslan looked confused. Lydia abruptly went limp and collapsed to the ground. My legs hurt so much. Then she tilted her face up at Aslan. Sir, could you carry me? Good. Now he'll refuse me with a stern face, right? Lydia looked at him expectantly. Aslan dropped the shopping bags in his hands. He bent down. In one smooth motion, Aslan swept Lydia up into his arms, as if he had practiced it countless times. Lydia was too stunned to speak. This was completely outside the plan. Aslan lowered his gaze to her, concern in his eyes. Are you very tired? It felt like a bolt of lightning struck her mind. This is not how I imagined it. Lydia's mind went completely blank. Igriegages. Aslan held Lydia in his arms. The very air around them froze. This wasn't part of my plan.